to VolyaRadio. Slava Ukraini!
Hello.
Don't do that, man. Hello. Nothing wrong with a little silence at the beginning of a space, especially
Well,
when
I just had to make a noise because I noted for the almost never I'm the first person in the space because I just happened to see the notification pop up and jumped on it immediately. Anyway, welcome to Good Morning Kyiv. We'll pop Wendy up here soon, and the whole team, and Mark and Prince will give us a timestamp, and I will pack the nest. Good day.
he sounded like Mrs. Doubtfire when he said hello.
That's what I was going for.
Yeah, a good old female impersonator Robin Williams there. All right, I got to figure out what I'm doing here because I do this all the time. I accidentally try to invite a person to co-host from my phone, not the host phone, and it doesn't work that way. So, anyway, all right. I got a couple co-hosts. I got Will.
Hello.
Yes, now Will's got the Mrs. Doubtfire down a little bit better. I apologize. It's just.
Right.
Yeah, weak effort, Wendy. Mine was better, and I'm a guy.
I didn't hear it because I was waiting for the blast off, Prince. It didn't show up on Signal. No, you definitely speak much better than I do, Will, in many ways.
I also packed the nest quite well. Even as an
All right.
80-year-old woman, I mean, that's the hello that I popped in with Prince was
Yeah.
rubbing. So I also do a very good morning Kyiv. Good morning Kyiv, but we won't go there. I'm going to pack the nest, Wendy, and we'll go where you want to go.
All right.
Great.
Let me do a timestamp real quick.
Yeah. All right. Timestamp time.
Good gracious, what a way to start the day. It is currently Saturday, June 27th in much of the world, but not all the world. So we're going to check out what time it is where. It is currently 6:02 a.m. in Scratchy Bottom in the UK. I'm hoping that mockers took some of my advice and made some freaking ice packs. Yeah. I was like, why don't you use an ice pack, mockers? I don't have one. I'm like, you got an empty 1 liter bottle? Go put water in it and put it in the freezer already. Ay. These people. Pung pinga. In Sweden, it is 7:03 a.m. and I just made Yenny laugh. In Ukraine, it's a pirate ship in Ukraine in Ivano-Frankivsk. It is 8:03 a.m. In the workers' paradise of Cockman Bluff, Australia, it is currently 1:03 p.m. Oh, maybe he's been hitting the sauce already, Will. Have you been hitting the sauce already? In the Kinki University in the Osaka, Japan area, it is 2:03 p.m. And in Cockwash Creek, Australia, it is 2:33 p.m. In Jackass Flat, Australia, 3:03 p.m. And in let's see here, Dildo, Newfoundland, it is 2:34 a.m. And in thought I saw a new place, but I can't remember what it was. And so we'll go with Goochville. In Goochville, Virginia. In Goochville, Virginia, it is currently 1:04 a.m. And in Ding Dong, Texas, that's something about that just cracks me up. It is currently 12:04 a.m. Then for those of us stuck on Friday night, June 26th, we're in Uranus Peak, Idaho. It is still 11:04 p.m. And in the Pacific time zone, in let's see, Rough and Ready, California, it is 10:04 p.m. And in Coldfoot, Alaska, it is 9:05 p.m. Alaska, where Sarah Palin could see Russia from her house. She started stalking me, and that's what I got to say about that. I am thankful that it's cooler here, but I saw a video of people just basically practically mugging each other for fans at a store in Europe, and I've seen that happen before here in the Pacific Northwest, where it doesn't get that hot very often. Knock on wood somewhere, because it was a few years ago. We hit like 115, 116. It was evil. It was satanic, and my air conditioner couldn't wouldn't go below 80, and it never stopped running until the temperature went down a little bit. It was a little intense. Anyway, I hope you all are doing well, and if you're in one of those overheated areas of the world, try to stay cool. Go make yourself an ice pack. Make more than one so that you can rotate them through the freezer and put them at your pulse points to help cool you down. All right, there's my advice for the day. Wendy, go ahead. How are you doing?
All right. Good. Good. I feel for everyone who's going through this heat wave, that's for sure. I'm not even going to say what it's like here. So it's been very nice actually. So I can't complain. But we'll have our turn. It does get hot here, but not yet. Uh, so yeah, I hope everybody's is able to cool down in Europe. Yeah, one thing that works here, since we don't have air conditioning, is if you put a damp towel on a fan, that helps. It helps cool the air down a little bit until it dries out. Then you just make it damp again. There's a lot you can do to cool down and get in the pool if you can, like Will, who does a lot of swimming.
Wendy, I have to tell you this, and I told mockers to do this. Before you go to bed, go take a cold shower. Do not dry off. Get your towel wet with cold water. Go lay down in bed, put the towel on you, and put the fan directly on you and go to sleep that way. That's what my mom used to do when I was growing up.
Wow, do not do that. If it's isn't it going to get your bed all wet and soak into it, make stains, and you
She
know?
wasn't that dripping wet, but yeah. It was it was yeah, it was always.
I got a better idea. Get have your shower and don't dry your hair off, but only that, and then run around the house naked for 30 minutes.
That's another idea that would work. You know what else worked? And how we ended up getting air conditioning in the 90s sometime. My mom looked at my dad and said, "We put air conditioning in, or every time it gets hot, I'm going to an expensive hotel for the night."
That's good negotiation tactic.
Isn't it though?
Uh, Yeah. And the other thing about real hot climates that I'm not sure people get their head around all that well is air turnover in your house, right? You want to when the air is cool-ish, if it gets down or as cool as it gets, you want to turn over the air inside your house then with the outside air. Hopefully you have you can generate a cross draft in your house at night if it's hot and pass some of that air through after the temperature drops below a decent time. But sometimes if it never gets below 30 degrees C, and or especially if there's any humidity, you just got to suffer through it with a fan, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's very much how we deal with it here. We open everything up at night and close it up in the morning when it starts getting warm, and that makes things tolerable usually until late afternoon when, yeah, it's just hot.
Well, it's weird talking about that right now because it's not like that in Australia at all. Cool, cold. In fact, I mean coldish, right? As cold as it gets in Perth. Cats hunting out sunny spots, and it's raining. off and on through the day. But I got a few complaints because it's still the workers' paradise, so it does have that going for it. Well done, New Zealand, getting a score on Belgium in the World Cup. That's a good prize to take away from this. No shame in getting beat as the 85th ranked contestant in a competition by, I think, number 5. And they look pretty good. That goal was a good looking goal. So nothing to be ashamed about. But back to Ukraine, who's not playing in the World Cup, unfortunately. That would be kind of cool. The top news, of course, is a prisoner exchange, 160 for 160 in the last 24 hours, which is great news, great photos. All these people have been in captivity for a long, long period of time, 2022, something, or in 2022. And great to have them all home. By my count, I think Trump still owes us, I don't know, at least 600 and 700 something. That the prisoner exchange before was maybe 200 or something, and we'll give him a benefit of the doubt and say it was 400 in total with this one. And so Trump still owes us 600 um, captives to be swapped by Russia, because he promised that if we agreed to a ceasefire on the May 9th parade, I'll recall. So, I'm like uh, 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 Prince's mom. I won't forget shit like that nags me, and I will complain to you about it at every opportunity. Trump still owes us 650 bodies, Wendy.
Yeah, it broke my heart seeing the video of the guy talking to his son, who he didn't recognize because he had grown so much, and the poor guy is just crying into the phone. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's real punishment, isn't it? Making somebody miss children that are real young like that growing up.
yeah, I'm happy he was released, but God, they take so much from them, and on top of all the torture and horror and deprivation that they put these guys through and girls. Uh, it's just, yeah.
Yeah, I think the report I read from United 24 said that a full 95% of all Russian or Ukrainian captives by Russia, whether they're civilian or military altogether, at least 95% of them show some signs of torture. That is unbelievably. It's ubiquitous, Wendy.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is why Trump owes us 600. And if somebody should ask him that in a news conference, or if a press person really wanted to help Ukraine and America in the White House press pack, they would ask Donald Trump why he's not enforcing the condition on Russia that they do a 1,500 for 1,500 swap, I believe it was, with Ukraine, as if Ukraine wouldn't attack that May 9th parade. And Ukraine did not, we will recall, although they have really gotten stuck into Russia since then. So that's that news. Karen, go ahead. See, I shocked Karen by calling on her early. Usually I make her sit there for 30 to 40 minutes before I say hello.
Well, we did have the other really big news. It's everywhere in the timeline. The flamingos have been out tonight. Do you want to talk about that, Will?
Absolutely, they sure have.
Well,
That's a
now I'm ready.
You kind of missed your chance. Now, go ahead.
Okay. A lot of us have been down on Netflix because they are streaming Masha and the Bear, and I agree. I think it's inappropriate. It's it's propaganda light for little kids, and I don't like it. Okay, even Gary Kasparov complained about it.
Oh, and I'll
How?
do it right here. Chibarashka joins the NKVD. Fuck
Yeah,
Netflix for putting shit
yeah,
like that on. Do you know how many
right,
people were murdered by the NKVD?
right. I agree.
And
But
that's the unit that he's wearing. That's the uniform he's wearing, right?
anyway, let me finish what I was going to say. Okay? But I read a glowing review in the Kyiv Independent for a film that was filmed entirely in Ukraine with the cooperation of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. The film is called Killhouse.
Yeah,
And
Killhouse.
yeah, and it's supposed to be really good. I guess the Kyiv Independent just loved it. And guess where it's being streamed?
Probably onto Netflix.
Netflix.
Yeah, I mean they're just sucking up content, right? They've got to
They are.
feed the content beast all the time. The problem is somebody in Netflix just wasn't paying attention and thought that this looked like a good deal without looking into it any further. If Netflix had a brain in their head, they would drop or they would hold it so that nobody else can see it and not show it. Right? Eat the cost. Demonstrate what a good corporate citizen you are and censor Chibarashka joins the NKVD. That'd be my opinion.
Well, then it's time to put Pushback on Netflix. What I
Yeah,
usually
if
do,
you've got Netflix account, you should definitely complain to them. I agree, Karen.
yeah. Well, here's the thing with Netflix. I cut a lot of my subscriptions off in the summertime because in the summer, I just don't
You're out
have
hunting
time.
bear and shit.
Well, no, not that, not at my age. But I do have a lot more going on in the summer. And it's one thing to just, you know, be absent-mindedly posting on X, and it's quite another to try and, listen to all this content. So I had already gotten rid of my net. I just go through and I cancel a bunch of them because it doesn't make sense to
A
spend
bunch of
money.
them. You shouldn't get a bunch of them in the first place, should you?
Well, in the winter when it's cold and dark, it's nice to have, you know?
Uh,
Yeah, I'm not
you're
not
allowed
into.
one.
Oh no. But and you can overdo it. I'll tell you, subscriptions are a weakness. And
I get 2 free ones right here in Australia just for being Australian.
that's cool. Yeah, Australia's got it. And there are other subscriptions like magazines. I end up going through those and I end up getting rid of the ones that I don't read very often. I will never get rid of the New York Times. Okay, that would be the last one. But just things like that.
What else?
But
What else would you have to wrap fish in, right? If you got rid of the New York Times, and occasionally it has good stuff in it.
occasionally, and the cooking section is to die for. They have
Right.
the best. Oh, they have a good cooking section. But anyway, I just thought I'd let you know that this is a Ukrainian film filmed entirely in Ukraine. And the Kyiv Independent seemed very proud of it.
I
And
concur with that endorsement.
yeah, and what I would do is if you don't want Netflix, I would just go with their free week that they give you as a tryout, read it, and then watch the film and then cancel it. You know, that's what I did.
Also a good trick.
Yeah, yeah. Just watch what you want and then get rid of it.
Cool.
So you can
Thanks.
always do that. So have a good, yeah,
To
that's
hang
all I
around,
have
but
to
if you
say.
want, but we're going to Flamingo Town with Wendy.
That sounds fun.
Well, thank you. I think it would be a good idea too. Um, Not only because I've been out the front of this facility before in Volgograd. Lucky me. Um, the facility that was targeted in Volgograd city, but in the north part of town, up north of the factory district and everything, where the Stalingrad War took on a place, but still quite fought over and all rebuilt after the Second World War. And this factory produces Bastion missile launchers. Bastion missile launchers are the basis of the Iskander, the Zircon, the Onyx. They're that boxy square vertical standing missile launcher that's made. It's ubiquitous throughout the Soviet Union, late Soviet Union stuff, and it's been adapted for all kinds of things. They also produce I think, a bigger, heavier version of it for the Yars. Any of the short or medium range ballistic missiles that Russia fires would be fired on launchers that are highly likely to be from this factory. It looks like there are five. There were three minimum FP5 Flamingo strikes on that target in multiple different workshops, and one of them, you know, looked like it had set a secondary explosion that was pretty impressive on the ground. Got something sympathetic there when it went off, which suggests to me that maybe there was some missiles stored there, or you know, partially full missile, something. They were assembling some onto Bastion missile launchers in a location. Anyway, this factory will be very important to take out. And this demonstrates that, of course, the Ukrainian military is way smarter than me, Joe Nobody from Australia, by picking out targets. But they're along the same line of thought that I was. That if you want to, what we want to do is primarily stop Russia from making any money with oil and product sales, but secondarily, go after their military infrastructure in a way that reduces their capacity to do the most damage to you. And two strikes overnight typify that precisely. The first of which is this strike on Voronezh, that factory, because the uh, that factory makes components for all these different things, and if they can't fire Iskanders, or they can't get all the parts they need for Iskanders, that is a very important reduction of their capacity, and it is great to see. The As I was suggesting, go after the Votkins plant or the other factories in Tula. One of those factories was also, so struck at, of course, another one of the Azot facilities yesterday struck, and the power plant adjacent to it, or not far from it. Um, were hit, and I speculated on why that gas turbine was struck yesterday at the power plant. But it might have a relationship to Crimea, but probably who knows. What is important is that the Azot facility for sure was struck, and this adds to a list of many of the ammonium nitrate and ammonia and nitric acid type plants that have been struck in Ukraine and or in Russia by Ukraine in the last several weeks. And they're doubly effective because most of these factories would be fully converted to make maximum production of military materials. But of course, they also produce fertilizer, which is the second largest dollar euro export earner for Russia. So it's extra delicious that no matter what they hit in them, it's good. Now I put up in the nest, because he's done such a superb job of going through the explosives manufacturer, that there is a post up there by, what's the bloke's, Michael Boner, who talks about where all this stuff goes into, RDX and HMX type explosives and propellants, and how they also apply to the UPMK glide bombs. And that is important because those are also incredibly damaging to Ukraine right now, with numbers of overnight attacks in Kharkiv and Sumy, Poltava, and Zaporizhia in particular, who have been struck overnight. And glide bombs are a real problem. So going after the things that go into missiles and drones, and going after the things that go into these UPMK are very important things. So Ukraine's two strikes overnight both look to be directed at striking at the heart of Russia's capability to strike them. And so I'm very impressed with those strikes overnight. Of course, there have also been a number in Crimea, but those are the big ones, and we also have some damage assessment of stuff that's come in on things that were struck a day and 2 days ago, Wendy. So it's a drumbeat of damage inside Crimea.
Oh, most definitely. In terms of the Flamingo hits, I did add a couple things to the nest. One was Dennis Schlitterman's video that he posted that showed the launch of the flamingos and also had footage of the hits. So it's pretty spectacular footage. So take a look at that. And also I added something from Melinda, who summarizes a journalistic investigation on that factory. It says that the company was linked to the Oreshnik program. Didn't hear you say that.
It absolutely is, because as I said,
Okay,
they also
yeah,
make the heavy duty launchers for the intermediate range ballistic missiles.
okay. So so that's something to look at as well. And then I added a couple of other things, but let's continue with the updates on what happened in Crimea, and there's also updates on some other areas as well.
No, I'll go back to this for a second because, of course, I forgot to put up the pretty picture of Dennis Stillerman's post about the launch of those things. Notice the launch shows 3 launch, and it shows and we have other video evidence confirmed that show 3 strikes. So uh, it would appear, unless he's edited that all the launches that were made reached their destination in Volgograd, which is not an incredible long way inside Russia, but they certainly produce a very nice big boom when they get there, much like they did on that factory in Voronezh.
Although one of the zillion posts I saw about this said that there were 5 launches. So
Oh,
I'm
okay, fair enough. That makes more
I'm
sense.
not sure.
5 launched and three arrived. Yeah, that's still great shooting with a thing like this. And note that these missiles, this is an analog of. I was loath to say this before, but it really is an analog of a Tomahawk cruise missile, a BGM 109. Every bit of the amount of range, not low profile, no capability of stealth. It sounds like a small jet coming at you, and it has the radar cross section of Texas, but it costs a quarter of the amount of a Tomahawk cruise missile and delivers the same bang with relatively close precision. It looks like. So I'm very impressed with these flamingos. I hope they really can produce. I think they said they were going to be able to produce 7 a day, peak production. I've got a task ready
Wow,
for 14 of them.
wow, that's a yeah. Hopefully they'll start using 7 a day, and they've got a bunch saved up over the next 40 days or so. We'll see
Yeah,
what's coming.
exactly. We've been noting that we haven't seen that many flamingo strikes from when we first saw them, and then we saw them try to tune the performance of them after the strikes on Oriole to try to make it fly lower and use a map of the Earth guidance technology, and it apparently have done that because those missiles there wouldn't have been 100 meters off the ground, something like that, cruising along at well below their top speed, but clearly very quickly.
Great. I want to ask you a question real quick, Will. I see Lexicon has her hand up. Um, but I've noticed in looking at the Air Force reports every day that it seems like on average there are fewer drones and missiles coming from Russia. I know they save up to do a big attack every 10 days or so. Um,
True.
but it seems like the daily numbers are lower. You know, that for a while they were in the mid 200s almost every day, and now they're sort of in the low 100s to maybe a little over 200 every
and
day.
and and
Have you
Ukraine is
noticed that?
Ukraine is consistently putting about 250 to 300 into Russia every night.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I did notice it, and I have heard it reported from reliable sources. ISW, in fact, I think noted that Ukraine has apparently has an advantage in capacity to field FPV drones right now, the very short range ones, mid range drones that Russia has almost no response to, and strategic drones that appear to be reaching their targets at a much higher percentage than do Russian weapons. So, yeah, I did notice it. Others have noticed it, and let's hope Ukraine can take absolute full advantage of it over the next 40 days. Like you say, we weren't seeing that many flamingos come out, and I hope that means they were storing them in preparation for mass scale attacks, because we love to see that. And this attack on this factory, I mean, we'll have to get the battle damage assessment, but that Bastion launcher is so valuable. And this is a weakness of the Soviet system upon which this Russian manufacturing is done. They base a lot of equipment off of one central chassis like this. Now, everybody kind of does that, but Russia also manufactures these things only in very few locations. They have these massive big factories, rather than multiples that could compete with each other in any sort of capitalistic sense, I guess. Lower cost of capital total for them to be able to to produce these things, but produces a single point of failure in a manufacturing chain if you can successfully strike it, like we hope Ukraine has done, Wendy.
Yeah, that's hope they keep doing it. Lexicon's been waving and had her hand up. Do you want to go to Lexicon, Will?
Sure, go ahead, Lex.
Oh, I just wave because still on this topic. It's fine. It's fine. Speaking of the flamingos and so on. So your friend Sean Pinner was talking to Kate Chabot the other day, and he's just been on a visit. He helped some knowledgeable friends from I don't know, Germany and Netherlands or something, to get allowed to a visit to a top secret missile plant. And so he was pretty thrilled to get there himself. And so he got a picture of himself, he says, sitting astride the big flamingo. He says they're trying to do redesign to make it as smaller, but at the moment, so I'm sure Kate wanted him to of Times Radio Frontline there to get the picture up, but we haven't seen it yet. So I've got it in my mind like Strange Love there going down on the atomic bomb in the movie Pete no, yeah. Anyway, whoopee, we're all gonna die. But that was pretty fun. And so it looks like he thinks that he's absolutely amazed with the skill and speed of the adaptability, which is what I think also Udinov or somebody said at the Ukraine Recovery Conference, that somebody quoted from Charles Darwin, that what he said was not the race, what was that, of the fittest, something, what's the, but of the most
Survival of the fittest.
survival of the most adaptable is what Darwin actually said. And that is what Ukraine is doing. So and then I also wanted to say that I get sometimes pretty annoyed with Deutsche Welle because their coverage is spotty. I mean, they do a lot of coverage, but it's all over the place in its precision and fairness. But I gotta say, they're pretty impressed with the so-called 40-day what is it, intervention and influence campaign they're calling it. And they had on the excellent Maria Snegovaya, who is a good analyst, and so she just made it absolutely clear that this 40-day campaign is only at the beginning, and even before it started, there already was massive impact on Crimea. And she pointed out the strategic importance of Crimea in the Black Sea towards control and projection of power into the Black Sea, and showed how Ukraine's already done a job on that for Russia. But what role Crimea has in the leverage of Russia and its supply into its other occupied territories. So I'm sure you're going to go on to that stuff. So that's why I was not waving my hands. Only I was clapping my hands and 100% in your analysis. So thank you, you guys. Hurrah!
Gotcha. Thanks, Lex. Yeah, look, Crimea. I agree with that. With that analysis. If that woman said that undeniable jewel in the crown for Russia has to be a major naval base and repair and supply yard and an unsinkable aircraft carrier to with which to cover the Black Sea. It's Russia really screwed up by taking over Crimea in 2014 and not deciding to just consolidate and count itself lucky, frankly, uh, because they got over zealous about trying to do the same, or the same thing, only more violently in Luhansk and Donetsk. They overreached, and then that was forced them into the massive overreach, and now they're gonna lose it all. Russia is going to be a vastly uh, uh, more contained military force through Crimea being returned to Ukraine. That is absolutely certain. So yeah, I agree with that. Speaking of Crimea, look, there's a couple of things going on in Crimea. One of which is the governor has announced that they're going to that they got a shipment of fuel in, and they're going to issue QR codes for people on their website thing. Hopefully, Ukraine hacks it and buys them all up from NAFO or something like that. That'd be lovely. And Crimea had a now we reported, and I saw video or satellite photo confirmation, and we talked to Smokey about it yesterday, of a 10-kilometer line of cars trying to get out of Crimea. But in fact, my Russian contacts have said that it was more like 15 kilometers long at its peak, and that continues. It looks like there's almost it intermittently to come back across the other way from Krasnodar is intermittent. Sometimes there'll be a couple hundred cars waiting there, and then they'll clear them and there'll be nothing. So I think there are people that are trying to run across the bridge and buy fuel and bring it back and sell it for exorbitant prices inside Crimea. But the travel involved and the containers they're using suggest that maybe that might not be as lucrative a business as you might think, especially once the proper organized criminals on the Kurtz side see you coming and recognize your car. So that's happened. Go ahead.
Will, one thing, on one of the posts I read said that this fuel that was arriving in Crimea had come over the bridge.
Yeah, they probably
Is
20,000. Some of the smaller truck tankers across.
well, time for the bridge to go.
Yeah, perhaps, right? But I still believe that the Ukrainians have decided to leave the Crimean Bridge open as the obvious means of egress for Crimean citizens to get out and encourage them, as they've done again today through multiple speakers, to do just that. Russians should begin looking for the exit early rather than late to get out of Crimea, because conditions are only going to get worse. And numbers of military analysts are recognizing exactly what I've been talking about since I put my first post up on this, and that is that the two major power stations, Tavriskaya and then Balaklava, or provide the vast majority of all the energy produced on Crimea, and support Kherson significantly after the Russians blew up the Kakhovka Dam. So electricity crisis here is easily generated by taking out those two plants, and Ukraine has made now in the last week 3 trips to Tavriskaya and 1 to Balaklava, and caused an outage in Balaklava on their first attack there. So we see, I think they're intermittently having problems with power in Crimea now. I think these facilities will need multiple strikes before they're down for good. But Ukraine looks to have the capability and the interest in doing that, Wendy. So I expect that to continue. They do have some fuel that they've come across. Russians will be very inventive, probably on and very risk taking on supply of fuel into the occupied territory. But don't worry, Ukraine will identify all of those routes and interdict each and every one of them, such that fuel will be a big problem. And it's the same thing inside Russia. Don't believe that Russia is going to run out of fuel. They're not going to run out of fuel. What they're going to do is extended lengths of times of doing exactly what they're having to do now, which is make the government's going to have make priorities over who gets fuel. And I virtually guarantee you that anybody who owns a private automobile is going to be last on that list. And so that is the 53 regions have already announced restrictions of some sort. The published Russian government data now shows that 22 have published their restrictions with regard to size of fuel container you can use, or how much fuel you can take, whether or not you can put it into vehicles or into containers, and other restrictions for time of day and things like that. So they've recorded 22 locations, and we have obviously seen others, particularly Stanimir Dobraev, who regularly posts all. And you've seen him. You've seen videos from places as far as Irkutsk. I personally know there were shortages in Khabarovsk, both of which have refineries of their own, by the way. But it happens, or it is happening across the country, and Russia will have to continue to make these bad choices, right? And or choices that are going to make their population less and less interested in the government's position on maintaining this war. But if you put I guess you'd say the population is in the pragmatist camp about the ending of the war, and the governments and a lot of oligarchs and things are in the hawks and the crazy people. But the Hawks will almost certainly win out with Putin at the top, and they'll absolutely screw over the population with regard to fuel and food when it comes to it, and everything like that. Just look at Soviet history of how they were willing to treat their population. You don't have to go back to the Tsarist times, but it's the same as there. Uh, just look at the easily published, verifiable historical accounts of what the Russian population was willing to do to its own population, let alone Ukraine with the Holodomor, in order to build its communist, what they thought was going to be a big communist uh, government that would outlast all the Western governments. They're willing to put privations on their population, which are unbelievable to you and me. And it's interesting to me, Wendy, that a lot of Russians seek out comfort first and foremost when they have access to money, and they do this. They follow the advice: just take care of your family, just make your family more comfortable, and you'll always get richer. And that seems to be the basis of these complaints of people. The general population who's complaining about, oh, why is this happening to us, and whatever, uh, all they're complaining about is their loss of convenience to themselves. They're not talking about any bigger issues mostly on these videos, and the key thing is missing is why this is happening to you is you haven't stopped the war in Ukraine yet. You haven't withdrawn from Ukraine. They'll have to get it eventually, but I've yet to see the epiphany. Have you seen anyone?
I've seen a few here and there where they, say that they need to stop the war or whatever. But no, not that many. Most of the videos we see are just people complaining.
Yeah, and nothing quite warms my heart like a large balloon-lipped, overly made-up Russian woman crying into her mobile phone camera about her state of life and well-being, and the fact that she's never been had anyone point out the hood latch inside her Mercedes Benz or whatever the freak she was driving. Yeah, I feel no pity for him, and the reason I still look at these things is not because I'm a cruel bastard, even though I am, right, Wendy? But well, it's not because of that. It's because I'm waiting for these people to actually do something about their own condition which challenges their government's position on a war. And all we need people to say is stop the war and get out of Ukraine. We don't see the soldiers doing it either, right? This big mutinous thing that we started talking about yesterday, that there's more people piling on. The militaries, some of the military units are piling on, and other people are making their videos. But I'll just note to you again, once again, the motivation for their mutinous assemblies is all has to do with the condition of the treatment of soldiers and how they've been robbed and the lying that's going on, but not that we need to stop this war and get out of Ukraine. We have no business in Ukraine. These people are all still tied to colonial nationalism of the Russian government. They feel they have the God-given right, I guess, to colonize their neighbors, and they're not stating that as the cause of their problems, the root cause of their problems is their genocidal colonialism. And if they just acknowledge that and get the F out of Ukraine, as they finally seem to figure out in Afghanistan, that things will only start to get better for them when they come to that epiphany.
Yeah, I wouldn't count on it anytime soon. And from what I've been reading, things are not going to get any better in the military or anywhere else. The military will have first priority for fuel, and the military selling that fuel, uh, which means that the fuel is not getting to the position. So there's reports of shortages of fuel for running generators to charge FPV drones and other things like radios, et cetera, et cetera. So in the Kherson region, and so
Yet everything
the
runs on generators at the front, doesn't it?
yes, it does. So things are only going to get worse for those people at the front. They're going to have less power, fewer drones, less food, and other supplies that the drones bring in. From what I understand, they're using ground drones and uh, air drones for delivery as well. So you can't charge those guys up, then they're not going to get supplies.
Exactly. So let's see. I put just some random stuff up here, but I'll just point out one of the rando things. Well, actually, I'll point out that there's a video from the Black Spark up there now, and this is good. I need a geolocator to tell me where this person's at, though, because I can't place it. But it's a he is a brave sob if he's posting this. I'm sure he's in Ukraine, but they should go to somewhere in Russia and post a Black Spark thing. But he's calling for, and this is, this is obviously blatant propaganda. from a Ukraine side, but I can still name that and say how good it is, right? They're clearly trying to pump a message of resistance into the very locations that I've been talking about for a long time. I mean, the scenarios by which Russia has problems internally, which either assist in or are caused by Russia having to withdraw from Ukraine, that makes it less dangerous over time. Any of these regions that the fella in the black spark here names, uh, Karelia, the Caucasus, Kuban, Volga, Urals, Siberia, and the Far East. All of these, and the Far East in particular, and Urals, Siberia, and the Far East in particular. Tuva, Bashkortostan, all Umartia, the places that are out there that you've heard about, that are providing all of the soldiers for the first part of this war, right? 40 to 70 times the number of people. Imagine going to small town America, flyover states, and drawing 40 times the number of population from there to fight in a war than they do back in New York City, right? That's what Russia's doing. And they have been doing. And those folks have periodically have expressed their displeasure politically with what the government is doing all along in the regions, and it only takes a spark. It only takes a nationalist like that fella who was on trial in Bashkortostan, that for an environmental thing, an environmental activist, and so many people showed up at the his trial that the Rosguardia had to delay it and bring in a whole bunch of additional black suited troops to prevent popular uprising. So it could happen in Russia. It's not going to solve the problem in total, but I absolutely encourage all of these things to happen, and for the altruistic reasons that he's got, right? Everybody who lives in Russia, who lives in a place like uh, Tuva or Bashkortostan or any of these places where you have a recognized culture that you recognize from a long time ago, like before even the czars or during the czars' time, and that you've got a right to self determination and independence if you want it. You should do. You absolutely should take the opportunity. Russia will never be weaker than today. In its entire history as a country, it will never be weaker than it is today at the end of this war. And each and every one of the regions of Russia, if you want self determination and you've got a recognized culture and identity and an idea of having an independent homeland there for the people that you recognize are part of your local group, you should absolutely pursue that. Absolutely pursue that. And uh, at the right time, uh, uh, if you're if you're able to do so, uh, rise up against the government when they do something phenomenally objectionable, like, wouldn't it be the cruelest thing in the world if I think it is Bashkortostan, that they took nearly 70 people for every person they took from Moscow and St. Petersburg in as contract soldiers. It pressed them in, mobilized everything. All those folks that are being drawn from these remote, lower population density places, wouldn't it be the height of absolute cruelty for Russia when they do mobilization, to also focus their mobilization on those very places that have already given so much to Russia in order to pursue this war. If they come back to the well out there before they go to the well in Moscow and St. Petersburg during a full mobilization, which is very possible, people are talking about, that would be the time when those localities should say, yeah, enough's enough. That's it. We're no longer playing along with this genocide of our region in an attempt to genocide Ukraine, so that the current power structure can find more land to take over for their own enrichment. That's what's happening. And the sooner people recognize that in those locations, the better. So this, and we've seen repeated. So there are multiple organizations that are operating inside Russia now. We know Black Spark being one. Atesh has always been around. The Freedom of Russia Legion is doing work inside Russia now related to military operations. Great to see those folks getting out there with their message to all Russians that you don't have to live like this. They're not, it's going to be censored. It's going to be used by the government to try to arrest and put people in jail, but they're doing that anyway. They're doing it anyway. Three kids were just imprisoned or went to trial in regional Russia for taking pictures of cemeteries in remote location in a remote location and reporting on some names and numbers of soldiers killed from that region. It's now against the law in Russia to take photographs of the music, the large, expansive new portions of cemeteries that have been made. And here again, I can tell you, in Khabarovsk, in particular, a big city way out in the east of the country, however, has a massive new section of the cemetery there that is probably bigger than the fields of Mars in the addition in Lviv that I've been to, right? And seen there. This is doing horrendous damage to this war is doing horrendous damage to the populations of Russia, and Russia doesn't want that information to get out at all. But it is out there. It is out there. The Russians do all have VPNs, or any Russian that wants to be in the know has a mobile phone, and if they're basically their proportion that would be teenagers and above, to any teenager and above that has a smartphone and knows how to use it is using a VPN, and they have access to the real world of what's going on. So there's plenty of fuel for the fire here if they decide to have popular unrest about issues like gasoline rationing or internet shutoffs. Internet is such a joke in the Far East now, apparently, that people don't even worry when they go to renew their phone plan on whether or not they get mobile internet data. They don't care. It's so slow, it's cut off so often that they don't even try to do the internet when they're out and about. They only use Wi-Fi based internet from home. It's that bad. Uh, Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add, yeah, I've seen some of those pictures of the self-injected faces of so far ladies. I haven't seen any men yet. I probably, if I went into look on the underground in Russia, that might be it too. But I don't think they do that.
I think we call that proto MAGA face, don't we?
Yeah,
Proto
yeah,
Mar-a-Lago face.
Yeah, yeah. I would never. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. I think I've seen several videos, and they don't get it, and I think the people that are doing underground work in Russia, I think that's the minority, and even I still don't think they get it until they get rid of self entitlement, and that's all I see on there. So I'm losing this, I'm losing that, I can't get gas for my car, I'm losing my business, I'm losing my rental house that I rent out for vacationers. It's all self entitlement. It's all self things are losing. It's not, oh, my country's falling apart, I'm losing my country, or the economy's shitty in my country for all my people. It's all about each and every self. So I think I don't think that'll change. And I really don't.
No, they have been
And I,
very well conditioned into venal self-interest, and yeah, I think you're right.
exactly.
If venal self-interest failed in Russia, there'd basically be no motivation to get out of bed.
Yeah, right. I agree. I did have a question of have you heard anything about Belarus? That transfer station that's helping Russia get it's I don't know what it is, a
The
radio thing or
five
something.
relay stations were
Yeah.
first blocked by Belarus, and then have been depowered and haven't been functioning, and may be being dismantled now. But Ukraine military reported that there was no activity being recorded from those relay stations.
Oh, good, good. Yeah, I was worried about that. And have we heard any more things about the threat of a buildup or something in Belarus? I don't think they're gonna. I don't think the Belarusians are gonna do anything, but
So
um,
here's what
about
I think.
Russia.
Here's what's happened in Belarus, both of these. Well, one of these stories is solid. The other one is a little bit sketchy, but I'm going to tie them together anyway. Um, but in Belarus, Lukashenko was told in no uncertain terms, "You stop those repeaters, or I will." And Zelensky also said, "And we see you're providing Russia with vast amounts of fuel for their military, and you can also stop that, and should at any time." And Lukashenko responded to that by backing down, closing the repeaters, blocking them, and then apparently depowering them, and possibly disassembling them and removing them. But the other thing he did was, strangely, open 3 border crossings to Ukraine, as if they're going to normalize. He's normalizing relations with Ukraine somehow, while he's still a belligerent in a war against Ukraine. But whatever. And then he announced he was going on a business trip. Sorry, I got to leave town. Can't take any more questions. Well, we know where
Yeah,
he went on his
I
business
really
trip.
don't think. Yeah, I really don't think he went to Moscow. Though. I think
No, he went to
I think he's.
Valdai. He flew to
Yeah.
he flew to St. Petersburg, and then apparently went over and met Putin in Valdai, where we know Putin has a residence. But also, strangely enough, Cyber Borishow published a analysis that shows that the residence in Valdai has been demolished for some reason. So I don't know if that's true. I haven't been able to verify it. I haven't been able to. But Cyber Borishow is not a crappy OSINT reporter. He's usually pretty solid, and he's published a piece that, I mean, it's sort of inconsequential, but he's published a piece that shows that the residence of Putin in Valdai has been eliminated, which will mean it'll free up a lot of air defense equipment, is what it will do, so that they can move it to Moscow. But weird that you demolish your residence if that's what happened. But what happened with there's road closures and stuff reported near Valdai, and I'm pretty sure this means that that's where Lukashenko and other reporters have said that Lukashenko met with Putin in Valdai, and they won't talk about what they've talked about. They won't. They're not releasing any written statements or things. What I think happened is Lukashenko got called onto the carpet for backing down over Zelensky's threats. But Belarus, Lukashenko he is wily as a cockroach, and has been avoiding. He's been maintaining his position at the power top of that country primarily by avoiding incredible hazards like Putin dragging him into a war directly, rather than the tacit and overt support he's been giving Russia to operate from Ukraine so far, or from Belarus so far. And he's deadly afraid of that. So he's overdoing his current iteration of appeasing Putin, so that he doesn't have to directly take on Zelensky. Because if he directly takes on Zelensky, well, he's afraid of it. It is afraid. Roshinsky's favorite new meme of the huge elephant like Lukashenko caught in a net, and the tagline is "It is afraid." And I think Lukashenko is afraid of what Zelensky is and could do to him if he provides overt action to Russia. But Russia desperately wants him to, right? Would desperately love to have Lukashenko not only support it with fuel and relay stations and whatever, missile launch sites. It would absolutely love Lukashenko to get his military engaged, but he's too afraid to do that, and we'll see what happens. But we'll have to keep our eye on Valdai because, uh, tearing down a tens of millions of dollar palace up there, so that I don't know, nobody else can have it. Who knows why Putin would do that? But if he's moved out of there, it's clearly because they don't want to have to try to defend all these locations because they are running pretty seriously short on air defense. Wendy.
Yeah, I heard. I think it was Bonk said in another space that Putin has 17 official state residences. 17.
Wow, I know of about
So
four.
maybe, yeah, I had not heard that before, but maybe he has another one in Valdai. Dan had his hand up and then he dropped. I see he's requesting again. We'll get him
Yeah, I mean
up
Putin's
and
residences. It seems like to me, Wendy, if you know anything about the like Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes, it's like every nice lake up in Russia, he's had a house built on. It seems like he's got
okay, I guess.
Valdai, he's got Lake
Yep.
Onega, he's got Sochi, he likes a good palace.
All right. Well, when you've stolen that much money, I guess you can do that.
Indeed, you can,
Um,
but the thing is, you absolutely then have to defend it all with air defense. Otherwise, uh, Ukraine could come knocking. Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add. Had trouble with my mic. I was just going to add. Yeah, I really, I'm going to speculate, but I think Putin and Lukashenko are planning to head out to South America. We might find them on a beach somewhere down in Rio in time for Carnival.
Well, Lukashenko, maybe, but Putin's gonna take the right route out that his mentor in the bunker did. I think the bunker goblin won't be leaving his job anything but feet first. I suggest in Russia, primarily because he won't run in time. He'll always think that he can avoid the worst of it, but he won't get out. Putin will not get out of Russia alive after this. Lexi.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I've heard some people say that Valdai, maybe it was even Philip Ingram, that Valdai is a resort center for all the Russian, for a whole lot of the Russian elite. And I know sometimes they hold so-called cabinet meetings there or whatever sort of
Hence,
meetings.
hence the name Valdai Club. Yeah.
Yeah. So it may be that this is the resort area, and so it's being protected so they can all hightail it out there whenever they feel inclined. And of course, Moscow has got they got these three rings because clearly it's got all sorts of strategic sites as they tend to do, clustering things and so on. So it may be that it remains that Moscow and Valdai remain protected areas. And of course, the yeah. So the thing about Crimea then is we see a lot of people saying that if Putin should lose Crimea, or should look like he's lost control of it or something, that he cannot survive the psychological impact of that, or psychological, call it what you want. As people say, you're in control of the forces. Well, or, you're in charge so long as you can control the logistics that bring these forces to bear. And so he can rant and rave about Crimea, but should he not be able to muster the forces that keep it there, then what does it mean to say that we'll defend Crimea? Anyway, the tension right now, the dilemma on the horns of which he is poised is, do you defend Moscow or and Valdai? I mean, do you defend the capital or do you defend Crimea? And some people say that he won't be able to. Well, I've heard people saying that he will die on this dilemma, or that Crimea will sink him. So that's an interesting thought anyway, that without even winning the whole war, if Crimea is strategic in that sense, that Putin is going to have to stick to it to the last, and that may be his last if he should lose or appear to be losing Crimea. So that's a delicious thought.
It is. It is. He will not survive. Politically, the loss of Crimea, as and when that happens, unless something takes him out first. Um, and so Lake Valdai is a would be this Valdai club, and yeah, this area where all these folks get together and meet in Russia, the Siloviki and the oligarchs that meet up there. It's kind of like upstate New York, I would say, in America during summertime. That's where these people all go to. It's a forested lakes, start all that kind of stuff. But Putin won't. He could have burned down or got rid of his dacha at Valdai, because his real one, where he'll end up committing suicide, is up on Lake Ladoga, way up north of St. Petersburg, on Lake Ladoga. But that's just my fan fiction. I see Johannes has joined us. Hello, Johannes. How are you? Are you still in Ukraine, or are you back in Germany?
No, it's actually my last day here, so I'm going to take the train like tonight. So and yeah, had a great time. Um, but yeah, and it's really kind of irritatingly peaceful over here in Lviv. And I know like certainly I met a couple of guys who were much closer to the front line and like whose cities live a very very different life. So it's kind of a bit surreal even. But anyway, it was a wonderful stay. I just
Hey, I want you to do something for me while you're talking, because we love the folks at UKU. Tell us how the language program went, and what you think of it. Give us your review, and your advertisement for that thing.
oh. I mean, certainly. I mean, I think within Ukraine, they're kind of the most professional Ukrainian language institution, and they did a wonderful mix of teaching both the language and the culture. So last night we had a Yanka Kopala celebration, which is kind of this pre-Christian tradition that is alive here in Western Ukraine, also in Belarus. And so that it was a wonderful mix of the language and culture and history and everything. So including we had some very very interesting lectures by people who were like involved themselves with the Shestidesiatniki, so the groups in the 1960s who tried kind of to revive Ukrainian, well, strive for independence and language and stuff. So I certainly warmly recommend everyone to go there. It's just that, but the deeper you get into the language, I mean, my background is that I'm fluent in Russian, so I thought maybe, well, and then also I have a background in Slavic studies, so I hope that, well, Ukrainian would come relatively easy. But the more you learn, you understand that the less you know. I mean, like the more you get into the language, the more you understand that they're like islands, small islands of knowledge in an ocean of ignorance. In your own, like, because like Ukrainian is a language with such a rich vocabulary, like for every like circumstance or for every whatever. Where in Russian you have like one word to express it, like in Ukrainian you have to choose from 10. So
And all
it's
the
really
diminutives,
challenging.
all the little diminutives.
Yeah, yeah. But actually, I wanted.
But you shouldn't
I'm
think of it that way,
not really.
Johannes. You shouldn't think of it. You have to choose. You get to choose from 11 variants. This isn't Germany.
Yeah, sure. But it's. I mean, at the moment, I feel kind of overwhelmed with it, and
Well, that's
because in the
good.
middle of the
That's a
course,
good thing.
I in the middle of the course, I had the feeling, well, that I really get into talking, and I really do produce more than just stutter. But like at the end, it felt like no, it's actually the whole the real work is still ahead. So I really have to think how to continue. And I mean, this is certainly the best place that you can go to. And I mean, really, like since they're really managing it well, it's really safe. So it's and Lviv is certainly one of the safest places in Ukraine. So I think that one shouldn't hesitate to take up this. I guess when I did the first course, they like in 23, they still only did it online. because of the war, but now I guess they've returned to offering it in person, and that's a wonderful offer. I think it's much, much more effective
You should,
than just having
when you get back to Germany, you should either get into a face-to-face group where you can continue speaking to somebody in
yeah,
Ukrainian, or get
yeah,
like an engine
yeah,
buddy online where you can meet up
yeah,
weekly to continue,
yeah.
just
Yes,
vocational use of
uh,
it.
yeah, yeah. Yes, and I've actually been kind of involved in like several like language exchange like tandem settings. But the problem there most of the time was actually that those friends I spoke Ukrainian with, their original mother language was Russian or Crimean Tatar or something. So I mean, the Ukrainian was really good, but they sometimes also mixed up the language, and so I would prefer to kind of really work with somebody whose native language is Ukrainian. But again, it's that's actually not why I wanted. Yeah. So actually, wanted to. I mean, like latch on to what you just been talking about, like the possibility of Putin losing Crimea, and um, I still have a hard time imagining how this is really going to play out, since kind of Ukraine is probably
Well,
not going to launch a
then let me ask
ground
you.
invasion.
Let me ask you a question, Johannes. Could you imagine a country with no navy eliminating 2/3 of the Black Fleet and isolating them in Novorossiysk?
No, I mean what Ukraine has done is absolutely
Could
amazing. I
you
mean the mere fact that it still exists is
could
absolutely
you
amazing. So
imagine
so
could you
uh,
imagine Ukraine adapting
uh,
flying and drone warfare to a point where they could man the front
yeah,
lines with less than
yeah,
half
yeah,
of the Russian things and still
yeah,
hold the
yeah.
line and
No,
advance? Because if you couldn't imagine either of those things, then hold on to your shorts, because
yeah,
do you believe that Ukraine could make Russia
yeah.
abandon Crimea without ever having a soldier enter across the isthmus of the physical land?
I mean, as long as Putin remains in power, I think he will. I mean, he will be basically acting like Hitler, like hold on to, because Hitler, like in the final days, he never gave way in any form. So he just kind of it had to be,
And
it had to come.
he issued the not one step back orders, right?
Yeah, yeah, sure. And so the Red Army had to go into Berlin, and they had to again. I mean, finally he shot. And no army is going to occupy Moscow. I mean, that's no.
Right.
I'm there with you that Ukraine has done absolutely amazing things we never thought possible. But at the same time, also these predictions of the imminent collapse of Russia, and that there's a coup brewing somewhere inside of the inner circle in Moscow, and has also been around for 4 years. So there
So
have been like
yeah,
so,
it has, but not. So if you've been listening to me for 4 years, like back from Maria Report days, I haven't been talking about the imminent collapse, but I have been diagnosing the factors that go into collapse. It's only this year in February that I committed to the fact that Russia will have a single or multiple black swan events inside its country, which could cause it to collapse. But that's all been building, as you say. But it takes a long time to kill an economy. And it takes a long time to starve out a whole group of people in militarily in Crimea. But it would appear that Ukraine has both the means and a plan to do just that. And they've succeeded before, like the examples I gave. So uh, I'm not sanguine about it. I'm watching it with great interest, but I totally believe it's possible. And that's another method by which this war could end, a scenario where Ukraine so starves out the military capabilities in Crimea that they resort to, you know, what they'll do, theft and brutalization of the population to try to get anything they can to survive, and then further keeping that pressure on them until such time as they actually don't defend positions anymore, and that causes an event where they basically just decide to leave themselves. The thing is that Putin, I agree with you, is highly likely to issue a not one step back order in Luhansk, Donetsk, and Crimea. And when he does that, that could be the source of people saying, "Yeah, no, fuck this. We're gonna leave the front." I think the way this war ends, regardless of which position it starts in and how it progresses, is that Ukraine puts Russia in a position where it just organically decides from the soldier at the front on up that they're done, and they just start leaving their positions, start leaving, refusing to fight, moving toward the exits, a quiet deflating of Russia, rather than a military victory by Ukraine, or going and rooting and driving them out, do it a Berlin sort of situation. I think they're starving them out, and they're causing Russia political, economic, and social problems inside the country that, coupled with the appropriate diplomatic events, will cause Russia to want to withdraw from Ukraine either before, during, or after a catastrophe inside the Russian government.
And yeah, maybe one question on that. I think that also seems to hinge on Ukraine being able to retain its like upper hand in technology wise that it currently has. And I'm not sure how likely that is. Some observers say, well, it's a window of maybe half a year, and then the Russians will have eventually caught up. And maybe we'll see the same as with the Kursk invasion, that it's just kind of a temporary relief, and then everything goes back to normal or as it was
Yeah,
before. So
could happen. Yep, could happen. I think there is a window of utility here for Ukraine to take advantage, especially of its middle range strike capability, with which Russia has no analog. Really, they have a small amount of Molotov drones, but they haven't geared up to do it. But the thing is, if Ukraine, as Fedorov has said, and Zelensky has suggested, are really going to maximize the utility of the advantage they've got right now in the next 40 days to drive Russia toward the peace table, they'll be taking full advantage of the advantage they've got now to starve the front and provide the conditions where a collapse of military willingness to fight does occur, and their long range strikes are both still continuing to eliminate Russia's cash flow capabilities to rebuild. In the way what you say is, if Russia catches up and then they rebuild, well, they might not have the money to rebuild with, and Ukraine is pressing on with trying to keep that to a minimum, as well as, while they do that, these strikes like last night, in to take away key components of Russian weapon systems, particularly ballistic missiles and UPMK glide bombs, is exactly the way to go about doing this war. So I think it's absolutely correct that Russia may find the way to catch up, address the mid-range strike capability, reestablish supply to all of its units, and press on. But I don't think that's the likely scenario. I think it's more likely that we'll reach another inflection point of initiative when Ukraine takes full advantage of and maximizes its use of the advantages it's got now with no restrictions on it. And the next inflection point might be another point where Russia does the mobilization or something. I don't know that that's going to solve their problem, though, at the time. If we can keep your government in Germany and France and all of Europe and Britain and Australia, if we can keep Ukraine's allies of real coalition together, of its allies, forget America, just Europe and Ukraine's demonstrated real allies now. If they keep the pressure on Russia in sanctions, they keep the pressure on Russia through enforcement of sanctions, and they keep making sure that Ukraine's got every capability it has to inflict military damage on Russia, then the next inflection point won't necessarily be anything good for Russia either. Because imagine he does a imagine we get to September, just after the Duma elections, and they hold a they then fire up and say we're going to have another full mobilization. We'll lock down the borders. We're going to get our army up to 1.5 million people straight away. They got 700,000 sitting in Ukraine right now. 700,230. Sirski gave a very exact number. Let's say we want add 240 to that. We're going to get to 1 million soldiers inside Ukraine. If you can't feed, provide bullets, bandages, and everything for the 740,000 that are in Ukraine now, how are you going to feed 1 million if you get an extra 240,000 to show up? The timing of a mobilization is going to be key to whether or not Russia can take advantage of it. But I think Russia is being backed into a corner now where it feels like it's compelled to escalate into a mobilization, possibly a declaration of war formally, so they can take totalitarian control of the country with no further objection, full martial law, and press to win in Ukraine. I don't know that that will save them at this point because, as I say, adding more soldiers to a position where you can't support the ones that are there now is likely to cause more problem than it's going to solve. And it could feed into a situation which, if they haven't done it already, the soldiers at the front will be ready to quit and go home. And I see that as the likely scenario, the most likely scenario still. So I
Will?
think I'm cautiously optimistic about the future and the trends in which things are going. But you're absolutely right. Things could turn on events that I couldn't possibly predict, or even ones that I could. Maybe a mobilization happens, and they somehow get a nationalistic surge, and they get their 240,000 additional soldiers, and they are able to speed up the rate at which they're cancerously absorbing territory in Kostiantynivka or Huliopoli in particular. It might happen, but I've been watching this war now for 4.5 years, and talking 5-6 days a week on it, and I'm quietly confident that things are going well for Ukraine.
I mean, is it a realistic hope that Ukraine can use its current advantage to prevent Russia from catching up for good? So is that a possibility, or
The
what do you
problem
think?
is the problem is leaky sanctions, right? They're dismantling Russia's capability to make any microelectronics and explosives and war making technology inside the country, but where they can still buy stuff with external help because people cheat on sanctions, I don't think we can totally prevent it. We can't. That Ukraine can't totally eliminate Russia's capability, but they're significantly reducing it, I think.
Will, quick question. If Why would Russia wait till after an election, especially if they could go totalitarian by declaring war? Then an election would just be superfluous.
Uh, because they're not smart. The time to do a mobilization now. So I've had to say I'm dead wrong about my prediction about 5 times on Maria Report and VolyaRadio. One of those times was when I predicted that he was definitely going to call a mobilization back around May of 2025, when he was on a little short-term sugar buzz high. They had the opportunity, and he could have used his 250,000, 300,000 additional soldiers at that time greatly. Now, not sure he could even feed them all. So timing of these things is everything, and by waiting too long, they've probably reduced the effectiveness of a mobilization. But he didn't feel capable of doing it previously because of he dreaded the consequences if they had to do a mobilization. in society. He's dreading what he's likely to see still at this time when they call the only thing my Russian friends tell me that could possibly cause an actual uprising in Russia would be a mobilization, a full mobilization. I think he feared it. I think he could find a way around it. Look at all the things that Putin did, the skeevy little bastard, to avoid mobilization. The huge bonuses that they used to pay, the mortgage thing that they've done recently, the contracts, playing around with different contract terms and conditions, and trying to get students engaged, and milking all the people out of the TAFEs. And they've been doing a subversive means of trying to lure, and all the prisoners they've taken in. They've coerced everybody who was at a disadvantage out of their society, and everybody who was greedy and thought that they'd go and make money off of the war in Ukraine, as opposed to what they were doing at home. And they're out of those people now. And if you want to mobilize now, he's going to be mobilizing some of the people who would, you start to mobilize the college kids in Moscow and St. Petersburg, and the TAFEs there, and the people they've been preying on. These are people that have some means to resist you. If you're talking about money wise, they might try to lawyer up. They might, and there's a lot of them. There's population density's bigger. If you get into problems in the big cities, it's going to be problems. If they have protests, and they happen in the big cities where population density was high, they'd have very big problems. Which is why Russia will go repressive early. They'll get very repressive and very violent very quickly and early. If they even get a sniff of protests in Moscow or St. Petersburg, you can count on every Rosguardia member, every local police person, every Oman person, every SVR troop. It'll be all hands on deck to put down any sort of and they will, right? I don't think you're going to get a popular uprising in Russia, but they'll get quiet quitting. What they'll get is they'll call their mobilization, they'll get localized problems with trying to get people in, but the press gangs, which are already out now, frankly, there's already conscription teams out. We've seen very recent video of them, particularly in Penza for some reason, but they'll be doing that everywhere. Local population will start to hide from Russia. If they're going to get an uprising, it's going to be in some place in the far east, uh, where they've already paid the price for this war, and they're just not willing to pay anymore. That if they're going to have anything like that, but he's going to call his mobilization, because it's the only thing left to him, Wendy, and the last chip that he'll try to or throw onto the pile to win this gamble he's made. But other than, and he'll continue to threaten use nuclear weapons, but the Russia's capability to fund the war is diminishing. The population is diminishing, and if he tries to cut a whole nother chunk out of the population to send them into the meat grinder, I think he'll lose political support, meaning the Siloviki, the SVR, the security apparatus, and the oligarchs, all these people that are called the Siloviki, this class of people, um, won't. If he calls a mobilization and it doesn't work, he's done. If he loses Crimea and it doesn't work, and he's done. There's multiple ways out of this war as a loser for Putin, and multiple of them are looking likely at this point, and nothing that he's doing looks like it's going to be successful militarily. But Johannes is right. He may call a mobilization, and they'll pull a whole bunch of new equipment out of their butt, and they'll have come up with a solution to address the long range drone strikes, and they'll go back to eating up territory in Ukraine. Maybe. Lexi?
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's clear that like no people people care about the things that hit them the most, and the thing about mobilization is that's going to strike individual people. Jason Smart never tires of pointing out, you look at the opposition to the war in Vietnam, you take a look, pull up pictures of those demonstrations and look at what's on the placards, and he says 3/4 of them or whatever. No, the vast majority of them are about the draft. No, hell no, I won't go and stuff. This is resistance. So this isn't the same as like how there were all sorts of human rights abuses and so on, and it's not America's right to decide what kind of government Vietnam has. And in Canada, we were certainly it was that kind of stuff. But I think that in the U.S., the opposition to the war was very much out of the interests of the people who didn't want to get drafted. And when you do a mobilization in Russia, you're not going to be doing it on the basis of forcing the bank to stop demanding the $140,000 worth of mortgage debt. The bank has to forgive it. They won't be given gifts like that. They won't be given the big home bonuses. When you get mobilized for whatever they decide the rate
Exactly.
is.
You get bumkus.
So,
You do
yeah.
get better paying conditions than a contract soldier, but as a Mobic, but yeah, no bonus.
Yeah, so this, and then last time they mobilized, of course, we know they had the means to move people. They could do some training, they could do all these various things. Well, the logistics now are shot to hell. And so whatever golden opportunities, windfalls, whatever that Putin happens to get, he's not in a better position to actually mobilize that army today. Total to the contrary. Then another thing is, don't forget that a lot of people are the who want this mobilization to go on right away are calling for a postponement till the never never in some cases of these elections, precisely so that the mobilization can move forward now, not when everybody gets wind of it, and they don't need to have elections to vindicate or otherwise on that case. And there's a lot of talk about postponing the elections. So these are all signs, but yeah, it's hard to say whether mobilization is going to help him or not.
Yeah, that's it. That was a weird discussion that I'll continue later today when I have another chat with a Russian friend of mine. Um, the difference between waiting to before or after the elections to call any mobilization, if there's any connection there at all, for reasons of that I can't think of. But the elections themselves are going to be another potential flashpoint for Russia, based on who gets to select the lists for the elections, not who gets elected in the elections, because whoever's on the list, we can guarantee we can pick out the person who's going to get elected immediately in a single party state. But um, uh, whether or not those lists are built up by the prime minister or the minister of defense input, don't know. And who's is going to be hawks? Who's going to be pragmatists? Because Putin doesn't. They'll put up a bit of light protest in the Duma before they do what Putin wants, and he might not even want to face that. So I think they're probably going to try to fill the Duma with hawks, and that maybe they'll have the election straight after that. But I don't know. I'm not sure they're linked at all, Lexi. But those are the two big social things that we're looking at. And I agree with you that the mobilization is the thing that that's the trigger. We're falling into totalitarianism. We're done with agency in Russia if he calls another mobilization, because they'll also mobilize factories, the rest of the economy, which is already a paper mache Potemkin village. That they'll take total command and control of the economy, the population, and everything, to try to go all in to win at some point. But I don't think they're a third-rate military at this point. If the alliance of Ukraine's supporters stay strong and keep supporting Ukraine, no matter what happens, this war against Russia can and will be won by Ukraine, uh, uh, regardless of what Russia tries to do from this point. Only if, well, not only, but absolutely certainly if the allies of Ukraine stay strong and engaged, and don't try to negotiate some stupid thing. Yenny.
I don't think that Europe will start to negotiate some stupid thing. I think that the countries close to Russia will protest way too hard. And in that, I include Sweden. It will be the Nordics, Baltics, and Poland, and probably Romania that will just go like, oh, hell no, don't do that. Um, I also I understand that we have talked a lot about the collapse of Russia, the Russian Federation, but the thing that has been lacking up until this point is actually people talking out against Putin, normal people. And you see, I have seen more and more of that happening now than ever. Before, it was like, I have no idea what I'm doing in Ukraine. This is stupid. But they still wouldn't say anything bad about Putin. Now we're seeing more and more people who are talking about like what an insane old fart that he is. And it was a mill blogger that said we should do an uprising and remove him from power. And that has not been happening before. I know that Prigozhin marched on Moscow, supposedly, but we don't know what his goal was. And he didn't speak out before.
Oh, he did
And
though. He talked about the
did
same things
he?
they're talking about now, Yenny. The conditions of the soldiers and failure to supply and support the military and the lying.
Yeah, but he didn't talk about like how everybody should march on Moscow.
Oh no, he
Now
didn't do
he's
that at all.
Yeah, exactly. That is the difference. They've been bitching about the conditions all along. Everybody has been bitching about the conditions of the soldiers and the front lines and that they have no idea what they're doing. The difference is now those guys that are not in Moscow, obviously, but we're hearing more and more this is stupid and Putin should be removed from power. That is something that hasn't been there before. Not even with Prigozhin, as far as I know. He didn't say anything about removing Putin. He just wanted to raise it, like get the better conditions for the soldiers. And now we're seeing this is useless. It's a meat grinder. We should remove him from power so that we can end this. That is the difference. And that is what's giving me hope that there could be a collapse. I don't know if it's going to happen this summer or if it's going to happen next spring. I have no idea. But the fact that they have the balls now to actually say these things out loud, that is giving me hope that there will be a collapse. And there will be a collapse. My grandkids will fucking hate my guts for wishing for this, but I want the Russian Federation to break down into the gazillion little countries that it could be and make Moscow into Muscovy again. Make it really fucking tiny. So that is my wish because fuck Russia. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you very much. Wendy, what is next on your list that you'd like to talk about?
Well, way back when we were talking about Crimea, I did have, and things going boom there. There were some boats hit there that were of interest. It was at Kerch, a ferry and two spy boats.
Yes.
That Ukraine was able to damage. So that was on my list.
Yeah, so the
To
those two things were on my list as well. Just to the right of just to the left of the advertisements up there, which you should visit and provide a donation to, whether it's Torixis, the Stroop Waffles guys, to fill up their van with fuel so they can get to Ukraine when they take it next, or Richard and the team at Frontline Kit for drones, or War Doggos, proactive fundraiser for the SBU Alpha and 18th National Guard, or the shotgun training, or the books, or either of the medics that we support up there. Find one of those things and provide them a donation, or find one of your own and give them a donation to do your own personal part to keep the pressure on Russia by making sure our guys have everything that they need to make them more effective. Those are the ads. to the right of those are some damage assessments on the space facilities of Russia, but then this other one that Wendy mentioned that we'll talk about first, which is the overnight in Kerch. They keep hitting multiple things. They hit this very tiny little air base over by Kerch, which has almost certainly been a drone launching location. They hit the military garrison south of the ferry launch area, and they also hit the port. Yeah, there's a little port and a marine shipyard at Kerch where they've hit little tiny cruiser boats or corvettes, I guess they call them in Russia. The missile corvette was hit at this shipyard previously, year and a half, 2 years ago. But now they've also returned here the other night and struck three vessels there. SBU, this is on their part of their 40-day campaign. You know, they said, well, what are you going to start with? Well, what they started with were they hit the ships, the Volga, the Vyatka. Both are Project 15310 vessels, as well as a cargo passenger ferry, Petropavlovsk, which was 96% ready. So they sunk those ferries the other day, and then they waited till this one got almost 100% ready to go, and then sunk it and damaged it at harbor in the shipyard. So that's very nice. This place is called the Zaliv Shipyard, and those vessels were both of those anything with a Project 15310 are military vessels, and they're 10,000 ton ships of about 140 meters in length, which are used for cable pipeline laying and all that sort of stuff for the military. So a good get. Three ships in one strike. If we'd have been reported on that a year and a half ago, it would be the biggest story for 3 days, and it'll probably almost get lost in the noise of everything else going on. And expect more of that, Wendy, because if they're going to do 40 days of stepping it up, as opposed to what they've been doing already, my head is going to spin because I've been phenomenally impressed with the number and variety of strikes so far. And if it gets even more intense from this, it's going to be, uh, we're not going to be able to cover all of it in a 2 hour segment.
Yeah, we'll certainly be busy. Um, that the one on the space center was also very promising. Does that affect their ability to, stalk other people's satellites?
Yes, it will. Yes, it will, because there are two areas done there. They use one of their space centers, the one in Dubna. That one is that communication center that was hit before, and we've seen the video of those. Well, we see damage assessment video or stills of those strikes, and they hit the main buildings they were after, and the antenna module that services that facility. So that's a satellite communication hub, and they primarily, though, I think, be using that one in Dubna for communications with their drones. But now what we see is the one in Vladimir that was struck. This is more of a space sort of communication and command and control center, and this one in Vladimir, they the main antenna of the complex, a 25-meter parabolic antenna, was struck on the main roof of the main hardware and software complex. So penetrations there probably mean both the equipment and people got injured as a result of that. The central part of the main building and the main hardware and software complex has also been significantly damaged, and that has all their satellite modems and multiplexers. So the things that route all the communications back and forth to the satellites was in there, as well as the central switching mode for the fiber optic communications facility. Also, then the third thing was the building of the hardware and technical building. Number one has been critically damaged. That one houses the transmitting and receiving complexes. This is where all the soft, chewy bits inside will be operating these things, which probably some people got injured or killed in this strike as well, because they're manned 24 hours a day. And as well as equipment for cooling the transmitters and electronics in the main antenna complex adjacent. So this is a very, very impressive strike in Vladimir that will hurt their communications and control of their satellite system uh, equally or bad as the damage done to their communications with their drone system by the strike in Dubna. So lovely, lovely strikes that I've just stolen all of
Well, the
Mocker's thunder.
space has frozen on me, so I'm not sure you can hear me.
Yes, I
I'm
can.
gonna have to recycle.
Oh, maybe it was.
Wendy, I can hear him. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but everything else is frozen. I'm
Oh,
gonna
okay.
drop.
Well, it's all
Oh no, it's back.
back. So what
Okay.
happened is I added Mockers, and while it was doing the switching around to add Mockers as a speaker, it probably interrupted your feed. Much like if the Ukrainians
Okay.
had knocked out some of Twitter's communications and satellite modes or something. It's all part of reducing your staff by about 6,000 a few years ago.
Yeah, thanks, Elon.
Thanks,
Doesn't
Elon.
help either it doesn't help living on top of a mountain either with no Starlink that I refuse to pay for.
Agreed. And we're supposed to say thanks, Obama. Right,
All right.
for years, I did that every time. Anytime, it's always thanks, Obama. Anytime thing goes wrong, because he's responsible for everything. Anyway,
Yeah.
we're almost close to the end. Let's see, what else did I forget? I put something up here in the nest just out of curiosity for folks. There's a next to the Michael Bonert post on how the chemicals are used in those factories, which I highly recommend you all read. It's a good piece of short technical information. There's another thing next to that from Status 6, War and Military News, which shows the air defenses firing at Tula the previous night when they struck that Azot facility. And the only reason I showed this is it's a good example video of what proximity fused programmable shells from things like Gepards, or these guys are firing this out of a ZSU 23, something like that. These sort of starburst shells that go off to try to anti-aircraft is all about throwing a lot of hot metal around in a cloud up by the thing that you want to fire it at. Now, obviously, the Russians fired a little too early or a little too late or didn't have enough ammo for this thing, because they definitely smoked that Azot facility. But I just wanted to show you those rounds going off, because we don't get to see that often when we see the Gepard rounds being fired. They're pretty quiet about. They'll show them to you on like radar screens that show the things firing and then blowing up, but they don't really show you the functionality of these proximity fused small cannon shells. So I just wanted to put that up there because I think it's educational. That's it.
All right. Well, I had one last thing I put in the nest before we go. It's just it's a bit of a detailed update on the attack on the Pecharsk Lavra. The Russians have said that it was Ukrainian air defense and whatever, all their usual BS. But this is a first-person report from a Ukrainian journalist. He said they arrived on the scene just after the first drone hit the roof of the mission cathedral. There were already emergency personnel there, and that just as they were arriving, the second drone came, and it said that the drone struck the tower of John the Hut Dweller, knocking it off the cross and altered its trajectory, and that's how it hit the arsenal. the Mistesky Arsenal, and
That's the museum next door, right?
basically, yes, yes. So they were aiming for something else. He also mentioned that there was another drone that they saw coming that was shot down by air defense. So there's like no way this, was
Yeah, no
an
accident. Yeah,
accidental hit by Ukraine. But it's really, I put it in the nest. It's really a very nicely detailed description of the attack, at least after the first drone hit. So it's worth taking a
yeah,
look
that's
at.
worth taking a look at. And the last thing I'll say, other than thanks for sitting with me, is the post from the Institute for the Study of War already paying dividends. This isolation of Crimea, because Russia has stopped all of its little re-education camps for children in Crimea, and from June until September. So they've shut everything that they were doing down there for 3 months, and that's great news. If they can't afford to try to re-educate Ukrainian children and turn them into orcs for attack on Ukraine itself, is a beautiful thing. So long live the siege. And thanks very much, Wendy. I'm going to sign off, say Slava Ukraini, and come back as speaker in case Mockers needs me for anything.
All right, thanks so much, Will. Once Mockers or Firefella is in place, I will drop as well. And thanks. It was another great informative space, and thanks to everyone who came up to speak.
Holy flamingos. Morning.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so it would appear that the 40 days and nights has begun. I believe it referred specifically to 40 days of long-range attacks. And, well, I'm just going to say that using missiles is one way to do that, isn't it? Now, the flamingo, folks, is a big old bird. She is. Big old bird. She's got just a massive radar signature. Can probably sneak a lot of other things in while she's flying too. But guess what? They're not even shooting the flamingos down. I think they may have got one or two, but they definitely couldn't get them all down. And that's, well, that's problematic, isn't it? If you can't shoot down something with the radar signature of a bus, you got problems. And just worth noting that these things have a big old ass on them, and well, there are some countries who would have no problem shooting them down. I'll just say that, and it would appear that Russia has a lot of problems shooting them down. Oh, I've just spotted something new on my selections here. Now, I have had all sorts of problems with this app. I've had to reinstall it again this morning, and I'm not actually going to open my DMs. I'm not going to log into them until after we finish, because the minute I do, it'll F up the space completely, and I will have to reinstall the fucking app again. So, just so as you know. But I've just spotted this new X for Android beta testing in like, on. So yeah, they've obviously realised that they've completely broken the Android version of this app. And they're obviously trying to build one. Bless them. I'm not sure I want to be involved in the beta testing if it's anything like the flipping awfulness of this app in general. But we'll see. Anyway, so morning, Firefella, how's you?
Morning, Mockers. What air defence doing? Oh, hang on. I'm just watching a couple of flamingos fly past me window on the way to Ukraine. Top work, Ukraine. 40 days and nights. Bring it on. Ooh, lots of woe as well, Mockers.
Well, 40 days and nights, they do have significance, don't they? So, yeah, well, look, the main story of the day is nobody's got any fuel in Russia. and they're literally starting knife fights over it. Yes, yeah, that's right. Knife fighting at the gas pump, because why not? That seems, yeah. Look, in the UK, we might be a bit bolshy about this sort of thing, right? And we'd have a yell at one another, but we certainly wouldn't start fisticuffs or a knife fight on the flipping garage forecourt. That's a step too far. But apparently in Russia, that's just to be expected. They're literally talking about, we're going to be killing each other over fuel, and yeah, they are. They absolutely are. Just oh well. Thoughts and prayers. That's all I can muster up. So I'm sure Will has told you all about the Flamingo hits, and very exciting indeed. So apparently they did order an air raid warning. It was issued a whole 9 minutes after the first cruise missile slammed into the production centre in Volgograd. A whole 9 minutes late. That's going to help, isn't it? So the alarm came at 4 a.m. Moscow time. However, the first footage of the Flamingo hitting its target was 3:51 Moscow time. Russian airspace surveillance just a little bit late to the party there. Oops. Well, what did they hit? We'll just quickly go over it again, because I'm sure we got an extremely good description from Will, but not in the last hour, so I'll just tell you a bit more. So these were not passed off as debris by the governor of Volgograd. He said it didn't happen, and Russian air defense completely repelled the attack. However, he did mention that 10 people have been injured. So there's that as well. Yeah, totally repelled the attack, apart from the fact that 2 people are injured. Okay. So there is a confirmed impact of at least 2 missiles at this JSC, in fact, Federal Research and Production Center, Titan Barricade, or whatever you want to call it. Preliminary geolocation indicates that workshop number 2 and the production building of workshop number 38, because remember, big sprawling facility, were hit. Now, what does this facility do? Oh, it's a defence industry enterprise, shockingly enough. It specialises in artillery and missile systems. It develops and manufactures the transporter, erector, launcher, make up your own jokes, for the Iskander-M tactical ballistical missile system, the autonomous launcher for the Torpol-M strategic missile systems, the artillery components of the Mr. S, self-propelled howitzers, and some other military equipment. So just to note, those 2 workshops are more than 200 metres long, and there's another one just nearby, more than 300 metres long. So, big facility. This is only the first of a number of hits, shall we say, because they're going to have to hit that place again, most definitely. So it has begun, but journalistic investigations and analysis have linked this company to, believe it or not, the Oreshnik ballistic missile program. It was also reported that they import high precision equipment for this company, for this particular facility. Like those machines that, cut things very, I forgot what they're called, CNC machines, those things. Also, the word, it translates as Titan Barricades, apparently. It's one of the key factories of the Russian military-industrial complex. We already went over that it makes the Iskander-M launchers, and it's a developer and manufacturer of the 9P78 self-propelled launcher for ground units of the Iskander complex. In addition, it also manufactures other launchers. We said the Topol-M, but also the YARS strategic missile systems. It's subject to sanctions from Ukraine, the USA, the EU, and other countries, and is now, well, it's got a smoking problem. And so that's where we're up to with that. Lovely. Smoking. Somebody's smoking in Melitopol as well. There was a series of explosions overnight, and well, you can see smoke rising from several locations. Can't imagine what that might have been. You know, Russians, obviously. And so, well, we've got lots of things going on. There was a delightful summary of Russian reactions here about this Flamingo cruise missile being used this morning. And we'll go through a couple of them, yeah. There was a lot of swearing on the videos about it, I must admit. That shock, surprise, just regular speech, I don't know. All of the above. The Flamingo is flying. Now, these are all just separate comments, by the way. 5 flew by. What a horror. I only heard 4. Question. Why are there no sirens heard? Are they only turned on for exercises these days? Not a single siren was reported. 4 of these flew by me. No, there was 3. It seems like a 4th one, actually. Yes, 4 exactly. How many explosions? 4 explosions already. I live near the barricades. The walls and the house were shaking terribly. Huge trams appeared to fly over my house. Was this some kind of plane flying? In the red zone, they were hit 3 times. And one more in Trakanoi, something. It's generally scary. Well, I only heard 1 from the centre, but 4 powerful ones. I'm afraid to move away from the bearing wall. I'm assuming that means the load bearing wall. I will pee myself in my pants if I don't, though. Is that... You do those things anyway, don't you? If it flies, there is no point in hiding, unfortunately. We are being bombed. Why is there no air raid alert? Where are our bomb shelters? A Flamingo. Who is going to shoot them down? Stalingrad must rise up. This place apparently used to be Stalingrad, which was a closed city in Stalin's time, obviously. Nowhere did it hit. No casualties. 4 missiles entirely shot down by air defence. You should sleep well. Now, this particular one received a whole bunch of clown emojis. So people were like, yeah, shut up. Basically the same thing. All the adequate people from Russia have left right away. We need to now do the same. From the sensations, these were not drones. You do not need to worry. The state already is looking directly into the goat's crack. Oh, okay. And now we see smoke all along the barricades. Now remember, this place is called the Barricades. So yeah, apparently there's some fun comments there. Just lovely stuff. Just love it when they're all like, you know, having a good old wine. Did that make your coffee taste extra good there, Farfella?
Oh, superb, Mockers, superb. Them flamingos, they're massive, aren't they? Size of a double-decker bus here. I don't think that's not right. They are massive, though, aren't they? And they do fly well. They're rather, you know, look lovely. Smacking into Russian shit this morning. It's quite delightful, actually.
Well, if you remember that Ukrainians have used sort of big missiles with large, radar signatures before. The S-200s, these were something that they had sort of left over from old Soviet stuff. And they used them to quite good effect because even though they were massive and had a radar signature the size of Texas, Russia still had trouble shooting them down. And it would seem that their air defence has not really got any better. So these things get through. It amazes me, actually, that I mean, as missiles go, the Flamingo is big. It's, does what it says on the tin. It's a big old missile. It's not very sophisticated as far as missiles go, but it does the job. And Russians just don't seem to be able to counter it like you would expect. And even when they're, got air defense in an area, they're not shooting them all down. They might get one of them, but they won't get all of them if there's a whole flock. Now, they're called a flamboyance, aren't they, flamingos? Not a flock, a flamboyance. I like it. Now, one
And
of the
during
things...
Gay Pride Month.
Oh, that is true as well, yes, during Gay Pride Month. Very nice. So, one of the things... oh, you've totally fucked me up now. I was going
Sorry.
somewhere with that.
I'm sorry. I totally knocked myself out of the space too.
And she will be so pleased with her little self having doing that to you, Mockers. She'll be chuckling about that all day.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I had somewhere I was going with that, and it's gone. So you'll have to live without that.
They're flamboyant.
Yes, they are, but you can't tell me what I was moving on to. So, shush now. Speak for a minute, because my brain's just like ground to a halt. One sec.
So in other news, apart from it not being painted pink, Prince, I was disappointed actually. I was looking out to see were they still pink. Apparently not, and I did take 2 or 3 minutes to have a good look at them. They're still not pink, but what air defense doing?
I'm in so much trouble.
Oh, absolutely, girl. Yeah, I would get the rosary beads out and just.
I've remembered.
Oh, are we back? Good. Go on then.
Yeah, I've remembered. So one of the things that is allowing these flamingos to get through is the fact that they've moved all the slightly useful air defense to Moscow, haven't they? That they made it quite clear that they were moving an awful lot of air defense away from everywhere else in the country and sending it to Moscow. And they're even now building a 4th ring of air defense around Moscow, would you believe? Because that's going to help. So, yeah, that's right. That they're continuing to build more air defences around the Moscow area, thinking that that's going to make all the difference for them. Meanwhile, everything else is going to be left unattended. And Ukraine's like, thanks very much for that. So this other air defence ring being built around Moscow this time has S-400 surface-to-air missile systems. These are the ones that they use, to attack civilian locations in Ukraine. So perhaps they'll have moved a couple of those away and sent them to Moscow, and that would be really nice, wouldn't it? So there was a new position noted near the Moscow State University, right next to the Inopraktika Foundation, which is Putin's daughter's business, by the way. She heads that business. There is also construction processes showing some more next to another platform being built, basically, next to the Universal Mobile Mast in the similar area. There is another construction process visible at the Yandex satellite location. And it has the exact same dimensions as the other identified S-400 positions around Moscow. But there's another one, even closer to the Kremlin. So all satellite images are showing, that they're making these new platforms for S-400s. Proximity of Putin's daughter's office to one of them may be entirely coincidental. It says here, it does make good geographical sense for an air defense position. So it's probably not actually to do with her business being there. So the construction of this new S-400 ring is probably fueled by the expectations of Ukraine using ballistic missiles and their capabilities. And I will just retweet the one that shows the locations of these S-400 systems. So there appear to be 5 at the minimum that have been recently built, these positions. And you'll be able to see that it's like basically in a circle around the circles of Moscow. So what they've been doing is they've been using anywhere that would be useful for air defence positions. In October 2025, for example, they completely flattened one of Moscow's famous and most beautiful parks and converted that into an S-400 air defence position. Because why not? There's also been some new Pantsir tower construction sites started recently. There was also a Pantsir SMD system placed on top of buildings in the centre of Moscow. And this guy, Mark Krutov, does a good map. That shows all of them with new colour differentiations. They've also made sure that all their pins are as up to date as they can be. Also, just to note that this is the wrong air defence system for them to be using. So there's also that too. This thing, it needs to have a bit of space because it's going to do a lot of damage to everything around it if used. Just pointing that out.
What else has been flattened, Mockers? DNA? Can you remember?
Well, I'm just going to say I wouldn't recommend taking any commercial flights into or outside of Moscow while these S-400 systems are there either. Well, do tell.
No, so remember Vladimir Putin had a lovely getaway in Sochi. He's flattened it. Completely and utterly annihilated it. Removed it from the earth completely.
Well, that was some time ago. He's actually also done the same to one of his places in Valdai.
Aye, because he wants the air defence in Moscow. That's why. And
Well,
Prince, I hope you're on the naughty step.
Well, one of the reasons for doing this, I think, is we can't be embarrassed by a drone attacking my residence if my residence doesn't exist. But don't worry, he's got plenty of them. So he's just getting rid of the ones that he dislikes the most.
Good thinking, Batman. Totally agree with that. But moving all the air defence people to Moscow is not going to win you a war. Let's put it that way. Or protect your people on the front lines from getting absolutely annihilated. And guess what? Ukraine are taking utter advantage of it. So keep going with this lovely strategic decision. I'm all for it. The more own goals, the better.
Well, this has sort of like hints of retreating to one's bunker rather than, being victorious, doesn't it? That seems to be giving off more of a I'm retreating to defend myself vibe than anything else. So, that's it's a message to the world, isn't it? That look, I would rather just, protect myself over here. While all these things are being moved away from other places, we get stuff like, Russia's Vladimir Space Communications Center was hit on June the 22nd. And we've got some nice satellite image of what happened there. So it would appear that this is in the Vladimir region, by the way, in case you need to know. The strike critically damaged the 25-meter main antenna and a rooftop antenna and hit satellite modem halls, multiplexer rooms, whatever they are, and the central switching node and a technical building number 1. So when you look at the at some of the satellite images here as well, let me just check that these are. So some of them are in extremely high detail now. And I just wanted to check that these were not over enhanced or anything like that. I'm just going to repost them because you can see when you zoom in that this place has been absolutely twatted. And, I say that in all seriousness, absolutely smacked. There are two buildings here which are just broken, and all the stuff on top of them, like one of them's got like this great big satellite dish mounted on top of it, and you can quite clearly see that most of the tiles that make up that satellite dish are all scattered around on the floor, and the main roof of the building has a huge hole in it and looks as though it's suffered from some sort of fire damage. And then there's the building with the three arms. It's sort of like a trilateral type building, and you can see quite clearly there the middle of that building is something's gone in there and caused an explosion which has pushed everything out, because around the entire middle of the building there's all this debris which appears to have like come out of the windows. So there was a big boom inside that building as well.
You mean the
What?
Y-shaped building?
Yeah, the Y-shaped building. Yeah, that one. I was trying to think what it looked like, and my brain was going, nope, can't tell yet. So I'm having one of those days today where my brain just like hides information from me, which is good fun, isn't it? Just yeah, brain damage. It's all good fun. It's like guessing at your own words half the time. So yeah, just pointing out that these satellite images show the extent of damage in such detail that even I can figure out what happened there, that something's gone into that building and exploded inside the building, causing probably quite a bit of trauma to anything that was inside. Absolutely sharp detail that I wouldn't have necessarily expected. And that is going to be very difficult for them to replace all of that. And this is going to have a really bad effect on their communications systems, their satellite communications. I'm not sure if this is the only place where they, have satellite communications from, but that puts a massive crimp on your style, that sort of thing. So, youch. Really, really good work. And talking of really good work, sources confirmed near total destruction of 4 floors at the plant in Voronezh. The one that made all the stuff for missiles. So 3 of the 4 floors. No, sorry, 3 of the 3 of the destroyed floors were actual production areas, and the last one was an administrative floor. One improvised memorial plaque has been installed at the site listing 6 employees killed, which actually does match the official figures. So maybe they actually told the truth about this place, because everybody knew who worked there. But I would note that there is 5 ladies and 1 dude. So apparently the women again excelling in, technology and making the stuff. Just point that out. Just point that out.
He wasn't a plumber, was he?
He was not a plumber, but I bet you he was enjoying the perks of not being at the front line.
Which
He
is
was
exactly
a commissioning engineer.
5 to 1. Yeah, them's good odds.
Indeed, indeed. So yeah, he was a commissioning engineer and probably also the local Lothario. But these ladies, let me see. So we have an etcher, a galvanizer, a galley manufacturer, another galvanizer in the production line, and a quality control controller. So these are the people that actually did the work as well. And military industry employees are exactly the same, military target as a guy on the front line, just in case you know. These are not civilians. If they're building this stuff, they're not for civilians. So legitimate military target, they shouldn't have been inside it if they were, wanting to be considered as civilians. And I'd just note that those specialists, well, I don't know if you can hear the cat just racing around being a nutter. Losing those specialists is, it's like losing pilots. It's important. It makes a dent, that sort of thing. So I'm quite pleased with the whole situation. Oh my goodness me. Now then, would you like to talk a bit of business, Firefella? About
Always,
business?
Rockers. Sorry, I was on the wrong page. Yeah, always. What sort of business? Firefighting
Well,
business?
there are enterprising businesses who are doing well, and then there are businesses that are going out of business. And let's start with the good news. So, the son of a senator from the Kursk region has responded to the challenges of the time and created a large network of crematoriums in Russia. And believe it or not, business is booming for him. So you can see, entrepreneurs, development. You say there's no development in Russia, but look, a whole network of state-owned crematoriums for the everyday service of the population. And they didn't even have to think long about the name because they've called it With a Spark. That's nice, isn't it? With a Spark. So yeah, that's how you deal with that. And so yeah, the times they are changing, and the guy who opens the crematoriums is doing well. However, would you expect a diamond mine to go bankrupt? A diamond company?
Only a very corrupt one.
Well, yes, that is true. So the diamond mining company Alrosa have decided to suspend mining operations at their subsidiaries. In particular, oh my goodness gracious me, she's got a toy and she's just like, I haven't been playing for the last 2 days because, it's been too hot. So I'm just getting it all out of my system right now. So Several Maz, which, they're going to halt the largest diamond deposit mining operation. This is in the Archangel region. And why? Why are they doing this? Well, because they're having massive financial problems. So they've managed to achieve what you would consider to be like a sand deficit in the Sahara. The same sort of thing. What's happened is they don't have any workers for the mines. Because they've all gone off to the front or they've left. One of the things that they find most valuable on the planet, and they can't mine it because of lack of money. So you need money to be able to, do these things. And they've got no money. They can't pay, what it requires for people to stay and do that. So now they're going to have to close the mine. I mean, I thought bankrupting a casino was quite a feat. Yet they've bankrupted a diamond mine. Wowzers! Yeah, let's just say that indeed is quite a feat. So never mind, eh? Now, here's another enterprising young businessman, or business people, perhaps, because Russians have been trying to earn a few rubles based upon their failures. More than 300 units of destroyed equipment have been put up for auction as scrap metal in the Rostov region. Information about this event was published on the official platform GIS Torgi, with the total value of all lots estimated at 43.7 million rubles. One of the 4 lots includes the following named wreckage: tanks, 22 T-80 tank hulls, 5 T-64s, 1 T-90, 12 T-72s, and 6 T-62s. So that's where the tanks are being hauled off to. They're taking them to Rostov to sell them as scrap. That's brilliant. BMPs and BTRs, 22 BMP1s, 25 BMP2s, 1 BMP 1K5, or is it S? It might be H. Anyway, 2 BRM1Ks, 1 BREM-L, 1 BREM-1, 4 BTR-80s slash 82s, 1 BTR-80, 1 BTR-50, 11 MTLBs, 1 ATS-59 and 1 BTS-4. And then we've got a whole bunch of trucks and cars. So Kamaz trucks, Gaz trucks, Vaz trucks, 10 various UAZ cars, 2 Gaz cars, Desert Cross, and MAZs. Also, lots of other carcasses of BMPs, BTR-70s, T-54 tanks. And in one of the published photos, there was entire rows of Tiger and Lynx armoured vehicles to be seen. That is basically what they're doing there. They're trying to cash in on their failures, and making money. So some of these would actually be worth quite a bit scrap value. And I suppose that they're also, you know, some of them might be recycled back into their original use, but not without fuel, hey? Just thinking out aloud. Not without any fuel. So perhaps they'll just repurpose them into artwork or something, I don't know. Now, Sololyov show is currently taking the piss out of people in Crimea, as far as I can tell. There was a lady who was on the other night, and she was very blasé about Crimeans not having anything. Now, I do hear this morning that there may be some fuel that's made it over to Crimea, and do you know how that happened? They finally broke their nerve and they took it over the Crimean Bridge, Firefella.
Oh, goody, goody, goody. Keep doing that, and we'll just wait for it to be in the middle of the bridge and then send a couple of drones. Because you've got no air defence. But, well, if you have got air defence, that gets knocked out, and then they'll send a couple of more. And once that you have a burning fuel tanker on that bridge, that'll be the end of that. Lovely.
Yes, I think Ukraine's just biding their time, but they're still only giving it out in small amounts. So I think it's 20 litres per person at the particular gas stations. And that's just enough to get off the peninsula. Just, you know, in case you were wondering. So this lady on the Sololyov show. Calm your horses, Crimeans, or donkeys, if those are what you're riding. There is no state of emergency in the Republic of Crimea, just a regional emergency regime. Make sure not to confuse the two. So what's she got to say? Since 1 p.m. today, an emergency regime was introduced in the Republic of Crimea and the hero city of Sevastopol. Well, it has taken quite a kick in recently, Sevastopol, hasn't it? So it should not be confused with the state of emergency in the way people are thinking, however. So, yeah, a state of emergency has been introduced, but don't consider it a state of emergency, whatever you do. No, that's not right. The emergency regime does not mean you're required to evacuate. It does not mean the closure of the city or roadblocks with patrols. It does not mean evacuations or curfews, except for the fact that there is a curfew in Crimea, isn't there? At 8 p.m, everybody's told to close their business and go home. So, yes, there is a state of emergency. She's just lying for the news. The emergency regime will not affect the daily lives of citizens in any way. Are you sure?
Beg to differ, it will.
Yes, and it already has. And people are like, but we've got no electricity and we've got no water. And so we are affected. This has been introduced precisely to make life easier to regulate areas of support on the peninsula, if you say so. and deal with the financial issues. So it's also to help that by bypassing the bureaucratic corridors or something. So instead of, them doing things under a regulatory way and red tape and stamped pieces of paper and all that, you can just buy your fuel in a field now. I think that's kind of what she's saying. So as the head of the Republic of Crimea wrote on social media, this legal emergency regime allows for the most rapid resolution of tasks related to ensuring the stable functioning of all sectors in which the life of the peninsula depends. Except that they've cancelled the tourist season and they've cancelled the children's camps. And do you know what the peninsula depends upon? Tourism. Yeah, exactly that.
Cancelled the
So
trains as well, Mockers.
yes, exactly. So I do feel as though she's telling some big old fibs here. Accordingly, financial issues can now be resolved quickly, making it possible to create operational headquarters and coordination teams. So what she's saying there as well is, if you got financial issues, don't you worry, we can send you to the front. Under unforeseeable circumstances, it now becomes easier for businesses to handle their issues because of the emergency regime in effect. They can close their doors faster, basically. As long as they don't operate outside of curfew times, of course. Let me repeat, there will be no closure of shops, which is already happening. There will be no rationing of food, which is already happening. No evacuation from the peninsula. Well, you tell the 2,000 cars that are currently queuing up to leave that news, because I think they haven't got the memo. Once again, keeping residents in their homes because of a curfew from 8 p.m. to 10 a.m. None of that will happen, except they have been encouraged to stay in after all the shops close because, it makes life easier for the military if you're not wandering around the streets while they're trying to protect you from drones. There is no state of emergency in these areas. However, she just said that there was. There is just a regional emergency regime. Oh, of course, don't confuse the two. I get it. Right. So everything is fine. Everything is fine. No panic at all. And I did note that she didn't call it Russia. She called it Crimea. She also did the old, war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength, blah blah blah. Don't believe your eyes. And basically, what she's doing there is she's trying to keep people calm. But when she says no rationing, does that mean you just have to fight over the small amounts of food that are left in the shops? Because people will. When she says there is no evacuation, that just means if you need to evacuate, you need to do it by yourself because we're not going to actually officially order one. They're basically trying to prepare themselves a human shield, aren't they? Don't need to evacuate. Just stay where you are. Yeah, just stay where you are. So yeah, I guess that's gonna not help. Dear oh dear. So it's all going to hell in a handbasket, and they just want you to know that everything's fine. Everything's absolutely fine. Don't believe your eyes. Everything's fine. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, one Russian mill blogger, Alexander Karchenko, again is coming up with this narrative that Ukraine is going to have a major counteroffensive in the second half of July. Now, I don't necessarily believe that Ukraine will have a major counteroffensive. I think what will happen is the Russian lines will collapse and Ukraine will just walk into the empty space that they left, which isn't necessarily a counteroffensive, is it? It's just taking advantage of your enemy's collapse. And so, this is what I think is much more likely to happen, because these guys aren't being supplied anymore, and there is now information coming back that some guys at the front no longer have fuel for their generators and therefore can't operate drones and things like that. I mean, it's terrible for them. They should go home. Anyway, this mill blogger in particular argues that recent strikes on the Russian oil infrastructure are intended to deepen the fuel shortages and disrupt frontline logistics. Yes, well done, friend. You just about worked it out. But he said this is purely so that Ukraine can push towards the Zaporizhia axis. Now, again, I don't think Ukraine is planning any major offensive maneuvers. I think they're just going to wait them out. And when they can't do anything anymore and the Russians come out and give up just for a bottle of water, then, they'll say, oh, thanks for the space that you've given us. Thanks for the, area that you've vacated. I think it'd be more like that. So he also gets very excited in his own fan fiction, saying that if he were making decisions for the enemy, he would begin the offensive, and then outlines exactly where he thinks the Ukrainians should strike to stretch their military reserves even further. Which is nice, isn't it? Do you want to hear what he has to say?
Yes,
I'm
please,
sure you
because
do.
and just a point though, they're already starting in small enclaves. They're all already starting to give up, but that's another story. But yeah, it is working.
Little by little. I mean, you don't need a massive offensive if your enemy doesn't have any logistics. They're cutting them off from the ability of using drones by cutting off the fuel for their generators. Their front line just runs on generators powering everything, you see, because everything around them is destroyed, so there's no infrastructure. And guess what? That means that if they have no fuel for their generators, they have no way of charging their batteries, which means they have no drones. So they can't even supply themselves with drones. Not ground drones, not air drones, not nothing. So that is the real knock-on effect on the front line. And that is starting to grow like a fungus. And when it becomes a real acute problem for all of them on the front line, they're going to have to make some decisions as to what to do with themselves. And in some small areas, you're right, they are just giving up and surrendering. We'll see. I think we're going to have to wait a little bit longer yet. But anyway, on Ukraine's plans, a forthcoming Ukrainian counteroffensive is almost a foregone conclusion now. Europe has given money on 2 conditions: to find more manpower and to launch an offensive. Now, again, I don't think that's the case. I think Europe has given money because they realise that Ukraine's defending the entirety of Europe, but also they're not giving them ultimatums about what to do anymore. In the past, they were sort of like trying to push them into a corner, and Ukraine have resisted all, of these machinations to make them do something else, even at the cost of themselves. You can have this if you do that. Well, we're not going to do that, so you might as well keep that and stop offering it to us. They've said no to bad deals, and they should continue saying no to bad deals. So, for several months now, Ukraine's recruitment centres are actively hunting down draft evaders, even in Kyiv. Have you seen what's happening in Penza? Just a question. This was never the case before. All talk of imminent demobilisation is an information campaign designed to reduce the number of deserters. Ukraine has more or less managed to assemble an assault force. Dun, dun, dun. To be fair, Ukraine does have reserves, so that people in training all the time. I do feel as though they have possibilities. They don't use those possibilities, however, right now, because there's other things going on. they're using these guys, these reserves, for rotations more than anything else because, well, it's necessary because some people have like been sat at the front line for ridiculous amounts of time and they require rotation. Otherwise, they really will be deserters. So just to keep in mind that Ukraine is using their reserves sparingly, and there's a lot of guys who are newly trained who you don't want to send directly into a fight, who you need to, you need to sort of ease them in. Anyway, the strikes on our oil refineries are not the objective, but a means to an end. Yes, they are. Well done you for figuring that out. This is part of a broader plan. Yes. Add fuel shortages to existing frontline logistics problems, and you create a threat to the supply of every Russian force grouping. The Hornet drones have proven their effectiveness. You know what? I bet you the Wild Hornets are really glad that they get a mention now all the time. And yet, their use has declined recently. This suggests that the enemy has shifted to stockpiling their strike assets. A campaign of mass disinformation has already begun. The enemy creates false information threats in order to force us to redeploy our troops. I'd just like to point out that none of the places where Russia is doing badly are false threats, by the way. There is evidence to back up the fact that they're doing quite badly in some areas. Konstantinivka is a different matter, but, can you defend something that's completely destroyed? It's very difficult to do so. There are other places which are more important to defend. Anyway, so at the same time, no real counteroffensive actions have taken place. The enemy analyzes our reactions and is drawing conclusions. See, what did I tell you? They're not on a counteroffensive. They are gently taking ground where the Russians are ceding ground. And I think that's more like what's happening at the moment. If I were making decisions for the enemy, I would launch a counteroffensive in the second half of July. I would concentrate strikes on Russian oil refineries to worsen the fuel crisis and panic amongst the population. Well, thanks for the advice, buddy. I think you can find that Ukraine's already doing that, though. Once fuel shortages have peaked, I would significantly then increase the use of these Hornet drones. Frontline logistics would be a game of Russian roulette. Have you not seen the logistics roads that are... Anyway. And our force groupings would lose their combat potential. Oh, mate. I think we're already halfway down that path. It's almost as though he's just reiterating what's actually happening right now, eh? I would begin an offensive with 2 diversionary attacks designed for the immediate impact, because, that's what Russia does. The first would be Bryansk, and the second would be the Kimburn Spit. Now, I would just point out that the Kimburn Spit is not completely deoccupied of Russians. They keep trying to resupply the area, and they tried to resupply the area by boat over the last 48 hours, and that got taken out. That boat got taken out. So one of the things about this place is, as well, these guys can't really dig in. You can't dig down anywhere. It's a sandbar, basically. And if you were to dig more than a small amount, you will just hit water because it's a sandbar. So there's nowhere to really hide. And Ukrainian troops are not going to occupy this area either. While there's, while it's basically out on a limb like that, there's nowhere to hide. So why would you? You're not going to put those people at risk because they've tried that before and it didn't work out. So they're just going to starve these guys out, I think. And every time they try and resupply them, they're just like, no, you don't. I see your boat. No. And so, the guys on the Kimburn Spit will eventually come to their own conclusions and leave. Now, I think they've pulled back a bit. They don't have artillery system supply in order to keep, harassing the waterways there, but they're not gone yet. So just be aware of that. When people say, oh, Ukraine's going to land on the Kimburn Spit. No, they're not. No, they're not. It's extremely exposed and would be really difficult to supply and would be really fucking stupid. So they're not going to do that just now. Anyway, where was he? These locations are as far apart as possible and would stretch our reserves. The main blow would then be delivered in the Zaporizhia Oblast. This time, the Ukrainians are assessing their capabilities in a realistic fashion. The only real trump card of the offensive would be cutting the land corridor to Crimea. These plans are entirely realistic. Moreover, the collective West has been singing the praises of Ukrainian military commanders. Even Rubio stated that no agreements were reached in Alaska. I mean, who would have thought that the current American administration would go back on their word? Shocking. How can one not believe, once again, that the leading nations of the world continue to firmly support Ukraine? Well, that's nice to hear, isn't it? The paradox is that the West has no desire to drag this conflict out for another decade, and that is why, while Ukrainians still have some manpower, because remember, they keep saying that all Ukrainians have gone, they've all died in the war, and we're fighting NATO. Well, now he's actually admitting that it is Ukraine. The offensive will go ahead because he thinks that Ukrainians waste manpower the way Russia does. This outcome will shape the twists and turns of global politics to come. If we hold the line and significantly thin the ranks of the Ukrainian army, Ukraine will then receive no new loans. Trump will once again say Zelensky has run out of cards. Once again, we will rely only on ourselves for the powerful. Their opponent's behaviour is a consequence of their own actions. For the weak, it is the other way round. In short, the time has come to be strong. Only the strong will be negotiated with, and only the strong have agreements signed. Now, I'd just like to point out that any agreement signed with Russia, you might as well just wipe your bottom on it. But also, he's still coming from this imperial mindset that, if we gnash our teeth and be the strong man, then we'll definitely win. Yeah? Because being strong makes you the winner. Not being well supplied or being, a cohesive community or any of that stuff, he's still coming at it with the wrong attitude, mainly because that's, what he thinks is the right way to do things. And so he's a little bit over imaginative here, but he says basically, if Ukraine begin an offensive and then it fails, that all the money will then be cut off. But he doesn't understand that Ukraine has friends. That they're not there supplying them just for a means to an end, for their own purposes. It's not necessarily, the way he puts it. He says Europe has given Ukraine money on two conditions, but he's again discounting the fact that Ukraine is an autonomous country who makes their own decisions. And, so it's all right, we'll just need to, weather this one storm and then Ukraine won't get any more help and assistance. Doesn't work out that way, buddy. However, the very fact that he's predicting this push, it shows that the campaign is working. Their fuel supply is being starved. And it was nice of him to give Ukraine some ideas, wasn't it? I'm sure Ukraine have their own ideas, but it's almost like he's secretly hoping that Ukraine kicks their ass. Weird. Just
So-
before I do the numbers, go on.
No. So just finish that off, Marcus. So they're all working under the misconception that it's the USA that's supporting Ukraine. It's not. It's Europe, and we don't put conditions. Well, I put we, the royal we, the European Union and the UK put no conditions on the aid we give to Ukraine. But also, so Putler has been going on about the agreements in Alaska. Remember that chat? and then Rubio said they weren't agreements, they were proposals. Do you remember that, chat?
Yes.
All right. So my question is, what were the proposals? Because nobody's talking about it. So they must have been pretty drastic, because obviously Putler said, "Oh, I want this, that, and the other," and the orange turd didn't say didn't say a word, did he, in response? So Putler thought, "Oh, that's an agreement," and it's not. So I want people to start asking, "So what was the proposal then, Mr. Rubio?" And good, but I don't think the press will do that. There you go.
No, they probably won't. Apparently, it's only the BBC that can, fight back, and good for them. But this Alaska thing was indeed them trying to, make decisions without Ukraine, just completely discounting that Ukraine has a will of their own and sovereign nation and people that don't want to give up. I saw something earlier on, and I was going to bookmark it, and then of course the timeline just took it away from me. Just as I was about to hit the bookmark button, I was very annoyed. But it was from a Ukrainian war blogger, and he said, "Look, nuke us if you must, but it's not going to stop us from fighting. We fought through, devastation, through constant bombing, through constant drone strikes, day and night. And if we haven't given up now, we're not going to give up no matter what. So you've already done your worst to us. The only thing that's left is for you to nuke us. Get it over with. Stop shouting about it, because it isn't going to change our minds. Until, you understand that nothing will deter us from defending our lives, then, everything you say is nonsense." And there's a point in there, isn't there? That I've heard this before. The last Ukrainian grandma will still be throwing a jar of pickles. The last Ukrainian young person in the street will defend themselves with a plastic spork if they have to. They ain't giving up.
No,
They're not
absolutely
going to
not.
be wiped out as a nation.
No, they're never going to surrender. So all this Russian tosh, really, that if we keep blatting them with Iskander missiles and this, that, and the other, they'll give up. They won't. They just will never surrender until you've left their land. Get it through your thick back neck skulls. It's not going to happen, people. Anyway, shall we do some numbers?
Yeah, I just, the more Russia pours missiles and drones into Ukraine, the more determined they are to not put up with it. So there's that too. So let us have a look at the numbers. We have the following for the 27th of June. All day, we have the following. 1,350. So that's still up there, isn't it? Still up there high. Just the one tank and 12 more armoured personnel vehicles. We have 58 artillery systems and 3 more MLRS. No air defence systems over the last 24 hours, which is it's a shame, isn't it? But you can be rest assured that Ukraine have taken out more air defence systems this month than they have in any of the preceding months, as was confirmed by some, charts. So, one day off. We'll let them have it. Another 488 vehicles and fuel tanks, because, losing 500 nearly vehicles a day is never going to be a problem for an armed force, is it? 5 more special equipment. Beautiful. And again, look, air defence systems and stuff like that, and offensive systems even, that they need to have working radars and working EW, and I see Ukraine taking out special equipment at a high rate, and I just think, oh, that's really hard to replace that stuff. Now, we do know that 3 missiles were shot down, and they're on here. We also know that Ukraine have dealt with an awful lot of UAVs, 1,951, and 11 more ground robotic complexes. And remember, for every one of those that's taken out, that's a logistics load that did not reach the front line. In fact, I saw a video of one of these Russian ground robots being taken out, and it was full of ammunition. So, never mind, eh? It would appear that that ammunition was not going to make it to its destination. Oh well. So, overnight, the overnight attack from the Air Force reports 129 UAVs only, no more missiles yet. And 113 of those were shot down or suppressed. So what does that leave us? That leaves us 16 UAVs in total. 13 of those were recorded hitting 7 locations. There is the fall of down fragments in 3 further locations, and there are still UAVs in the airspace as of 8:30, so that was 2.5 hours ago. And so that's your Air Force report. And every day we go through these numbers, and we don't really specify that every day Ukraine is being attacked by a ridiculous number of drones, and they're taking a really high percentage of them out. But of course, some of them do hit, and they're causing untold damage and destruction for Ukraine every fucking day. And if this was, any other country surrounding it in Europe, we'd be going absolutely crackers. It'd be front page news every 5 fucking minutes. But we've moved on from that, you see. We're too busy worried about culture wars again, which is a Russian narrative, obviously, than people actually dying and having their homes destroyed. And I feel as though, Russia is very good at making us look over there rather than what's actually going on. And that's why I do this every day, because if I can just boost the awareness of a couple of people, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Now, there was some extremely good news yesterday. I'm sure you saw it, Firefella, of 160 service members released from captivity.
I certainly did, Mockers. I was waiting for you to bring it up. Superb work.
Well, all of these people as well have been in captivity since 2022. So these are the ones that have been in captivity for the longest. And this is something that the leadership has been trying to sort out. That, the ones that have been there the longest are the ones that should be coming home first. And this is really important. I just heard someone come flying in the house like their ass was on fire. And I'm trying to figure out if it's because they were being chased by somebody. So bear with me a minute while I might have to chase a fluffy cat or something. Hello, child. Were you being chased? She's got a big fluffy tail, so I imagine she was being chased. So continuing to bring home Ukrainians that have been in captivity since 2022 is some really important stuff. Amongst those released were service members of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, State Special Transport Service, National Guards, Border Guards, and all of these people defended Ukraine in Mariupol and at Azovstal, as well as in Donetsk, Luhansk, Kharkiv, Zaporizhia, Kyiv, Chernihiv, and the Sumy sectors. So there is an entire team which works on bringing these people home. There's a major negotiating team in place to do this sort of thing. And these are only possible because of surrendering soldiers and captured soldiers on the Russian side as well. So he thanks everybody who replenishes the exchange fund. This is Zelensky here, by the way. And he says, we remember everyone who remains in captivity. We check every name. We attempt to bring everyone back both military personnel and civilians. Now, I do believe that a number of these people released were technically civilians as well. So it's worth keeping in mind that Russians also capture, journalists and other civilians, and Ukraine has to exchange those people too, because, well, technically Russia shouldn't get anything in return for those people, but this was indeed a 160 for 160, so I bet you they did get somebody in return for some of these. That's a war crime in itself, by the way. Remember them offering children? We'll swap some of our soldiers for your children to come home. Just the criminal bullshit. Ooh, I could be rude. About that sort of thing.
Absolutely,
Anyway.
Mockers. Absolutely disgusting. But that's 160 happy stories and happy families this weekend. Just, yeah, brings me to tears. Well done. Whoever did it, well done. But, yeah.
Well, I do believe the United Arab Emirates were also involved in this exchange. Ukraine's been very helpful to these Middle Eastern countries as well just recently, haven't they, with everything that's been going on over there. So I would imagine this gives them more impetus to assist even more than they've been doing in the past. And I think it is important for Ukraine to, continue to maintain those relationships and maintain some, shall we say, friendly assistance programs where they, they have some say, some leverage, rather than just being, oh, poor Ukraine needs help. Ukraine actually is like, look at how we're helping you. So here's what you can do to help us in return. A symbiotic relationship, that's the one. Now, talking of relationships, one of Putin's closest allies has been confirmed to have died. The former Russian Defense Minister Sergei Ivanov. Now, he was 73, so, remember, people don't live much past their 70s in Russia, unless you're very well cared for. This guy would have been amongst those people who was very well cared for, so, tiny bit suspicious. The cause of death has not yet been disclosed, but we can probably figure out it was perhaps a cup of tea. Or maybe, suicide, one of those. But it is worth noting this guy because he himself is a former Soviet KGB officer. He served in foreign intelligence before becoming Russia's defense minister. He later served as a deputy prime minister and head of the presidential administration. And he's very closely tied to Putin, an actual member of Putin's inner circle. I wonder if Putin has decided that this guy was just too much of a risk. Because remember, he can't have anybody who might be able to, tell tales on him. He can't have anybody available who might be able to step into his shoes, even. Gosh, no. That would not be a good idea, would it, to leave any of those people alive? I do wonder if this guy just was maybe speaking out of turn and just got himself, bumped off. Anyway, for decades, he's been considered one of Putin's closest associates, having known him since their time in the Soviet security services together. So this guy just suddenly dying, with no talk of him being ill or anything like that previously, just makes you wonder, did something happen? So any former Soviet KGB officer may also be considered a potential threat. So we'll see anyway. But somebody from his actual inner circle either shows that he is very paranoid, or perhaps somebody is, making him very paranoid. We'll see. The fact that they're not disclosing his manner of death tells you that it's suspicious. Because if he just, passed away of natural causes, heart attack, car accident, something like that, they'd have just said so, surely. But no, they're having to formulate a story. Otherwise, they'd have just told us how he died.
Yeah, mockers can't really do that when you fall out of a window and you're splattered all over the pavement, can you? It's a bit messy. Just pontificating.
It does make you wonder, doesn't it? So, yeah, there's another suspicious death to add to the list of suspicious deaths, which is ever growing, I have noticed. Now, remember this guy who came out and he had this, big bravado moment in front of the camera, and then the next day he was kind of like, nah, I didn't really mean it, not really.
The Civil War bloke.
Yeah. So he climbed down from that original position, didn't he? Quite quickly, because of some people coming to meet him and tell him that that's not the way we do these things. And even further now, he has climbed down and he has said, "Oh no! My real beef is with the commanders of the units who are, harming the soldiers, and my real beef is with them and the war bloggers who aren't telling the truth." So that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to get these people to speak out about the problems, and Peskov has actually addressed this issue and said, "We'll do an investigation. We'll do an investigation into, how these commanders are treating their boys." That investigation is going to be one of those things that just drags on and never gets done because they don't really care, do they? But, they've shown that there was a problem. Then they've shown that they're going to do something about it. And this guy has immediately been placated. Now, remember when I said that there is this sort of tactic of allowing a pressure release valve, like on the pressure cooker, when everything's going terrible, they used to wheel out gherkin to have a good old wine, and everyone would say, "Look, see, somebody's speaking truth to power, so it's okay. We don't need to." And I just wonder if this guy is one of those, because he did actually say somebody told him to say these things. And that's a bit telling. This is an old KGB tactic where you get somebody to blow off steam, to shout about the problem, to bring up some of the real problems that people actually know about, and then do some sort of, don't worry, it's not Putin. It's actually, it's his subordinates that are the problem. In fact, it's even lower than that. It's the commanders on the ground. It's the war bloggers. They're the problem, not Putin or any of his command. So again, it's going back to good Tsar, bad boyar. You see, he didn't really challenge the system. He begged for people to pay attention to the problems that they're having, which a lot of people already know about and haven't wanted to speak on because, for fear of getting into trouble. And this guy's basically said, look, it's okay to speak about these problems because now Peskov's going to do something about it. He's opened up an investigation and it'll all be fine now. Don't you worry. This could well just have been an information game, just to allow the people to think that something is being done. Because one of the reasons why people don't want to sign up for war is because of the horror stories they hear of people receiving, terrible treatment at the hands of their own command. So look, somebody's going to do something about it. There's an investigation started. I just,
No, you're absolutely right, Mockers. So what I have noticed is doing an investigation in Russia is much like doing an investigation in the RS government. I'm just like pointing that out. And he'll know that he's overstepped the line when he gets invited to Moscow. That'll be the end of him.
Well, yeah, exactly. So I don't necessarily believe that this guy was challenging the guys at the top. He was just pointing out the difficulties with the system and how the system needs to change. And it's nothing to do with the management. It's all to do with the guys below who are just not doing their jobs properly. And so, yeah, he's climbed down from this position quite quickly. He probably also was, in receipt of a few threats. So there's that. This is a way of blowing off steam while keeping the system intact. And Western media does like to run with this and go, oh, we're going to have a civil war. We're going to have a civil war. But in some cases, this is also another tactic of the KGB/FSB to weed out dissenters. You know, folks, get in touch with me if you're ready to fight back against the, you know, horrors that our government has brought upon us. And then anybody who does get in touch finds themselves falling out of a window. You know, there's that too. This was carried out all across the Soviet states when Russia, you know, came and took them. That people were basically the only people who were in the only people who talked of revolution were the people who were actually told to weed out anybody who might be considering revolution, you know? So there's that too. And anybody who seriously spoke of it ended up dead quite quickly or handed into the authorities because, you know, you couldn't trust nobody. Can't trust nobody these days.
Or having your plane shot down that you were travelling on, Mockers. You know, they do have form in this area, don't they?
Don't they just? Yeah, so I think there's that. But the problem is, times are bad. Times are bad. And once you get somebody starting this sort of thing, other people might just also, you know, have to voice their own dissent. Now, again, they're not necessarily threatening the boss, but they are saying that things need to change. You see, what started as the former army commander Alexander Lunin, that's the guy who originally started this. You see, he did actually threaten Putin and mention him over this brutality, theft and murder in the Russian military. Well, military units have now actually started to speak up and join in with these threats. And I'm just going to say that these particular military units, now that they've identified themselves, will be in lots of trouble. So these guys are going to find themselves also tortured in basements because they put their faces on camera. Very silly of them. Very silly of them. So just to note, Russian soldiers, even if they are ready to mutiny, have been pulled out of the woodwork by a Kremlin narrative, I think. Two FSB guys were really nice and really understood this Alexander Lunin guy. Did they now? Did they? Also, the guys who are speaking in this new video saying that they're going to dissent as well, this most recent one of a whole group of guys, right? It's 30 degrees plus. These guys are apparently somewhere on the front line, all wearing full military uniform, including jackets. Have you seen these guys? They'd have sold that jacket for a flipping vodka some time ago. It's very likely that this particular group of guys are stood in Moscow sweating their balls off making this video to try and draw out anybody who is really dissenting. Just in case, you know, you didn't know. It's the good old, good Tsar, bad boyar troll. And it's to pull out anybody who's really got a problem, who really thinks they're going to do something about it. And probably, I would say, you know, 80, 90% of the Russians already know this. So, yeah, don't fall for it. Just say that. Now, one thing that I did note, however, is one Russian military police officer has been made an example of. It has come to light that he stole 2 million rubles from a recruit who was mentally disabled and sent to an assault unit. So, you know, probably some poor kid who's like got Down syndrome or something like that. Because we've seen that, haven't we? However, illustrating the current state of morale on the front lines, the story goes that he and 3 comrades reportedly blew their own legs off so they didn't have to go and fight. Wow. So there's a video of him saying, "Oh no, I wasn't stealing money. No, this was for this was for the unit. It wasn't for me." And there's some guys actually, holding him to account on camera and saying, "Look, we know what you did. We totally understand what you did, and now you're here, and this is full retribution for what you were doing to, that poor sap who you stole some money off." But I can guarantee you he wasn't the only poor sap that he stole some money off, and there's a lot more than that going on. However, I feel that they made an example out of this guy for the camera. If we make an example out of just 2 or 3 of them, and then it looks as though we've done a really good job. However, Russian war blogger has commented on this story in 3 posts. Here we usually write about heroes, but this is an anti-hero. One of those who profited from the war. One of those who let others suffer while he benefited. Meet one of the staff officers of our military police. Briefly, the situation. In a training ground, new arrivals undergo training. One of the fighters is quiet. Something is wrong with his head. He is unwell. The military police take him, and for the entire duration of the recruits' training, he stays with them and does small odd jobs. And every day, money is withdrawn from his card. This is an enlistment payment, they call it. In total, they took around 2 million. And the police, obviously, will not arrest themselves. But the people ensured that justice was done. The man and 3 others who participated in this withdrawal of his money were sent to an assault company. I'll be honest, they're not broken yet, only because tomorrow they will be riding to the sunset in an assault, along with those who they robbed, or rather, the same as them. They are now on par. This is right, this is fair, this is justice, this will relieve social tension. See, it's done for the cameras. Everyone's heard of people stealing the fighters' money, and here's one of them right before you. He has the call sign Kino. Is that a cinema? I think it is. He was filmed being told contemptuously that he was this anti-hero. He protests in vain that he hasn't stolen anything on the video. However, he then reports what happens next. Look at that face again. A former private soldier. He became the head of the local military police. He was supposed to be going to the front line with you guys today to prove he was an officer, even if he was a dishonest one. But he took 2 grenade fuses and strapped them to his leg and blew them up and shouted, "Evacuate me! I am wounded." Where is his manhood? Probably over in the bushes somewhere, I don't know. Sorry. And the story won't end there. Continuing the story of the top brass of the military police sent to assault companies for stealing money from the military personnel's cards, we introduce you to a character, Kino, who blew himself up and didn't go to the positions to fight. But he was not the only one. There were 4 of them, and the others also blew themselves up in the same way. Not a single one of them went to fight the enemy. These cheapskates. The state gave them loans. They literally sucked the blood of the soldiers they found in the rear. They fined people for not wearing seatbelts on the roads where there was a risk of drones. Cars with civilian license plates were confiscated and sold for their benefit, despite the fact that artificial intelligence awaiting drones, queues on black military license plates, they would not allow us to drive civilian cars. They did a whole lot of things. They came and they stole and stole and stole. And when it came to fighting, they used their ammunition on themselves to be evacuated rather than the enemy. Wow. And also, somebody's just said, a mentally disabled recruit. Is that not a problem? But you see, we're looking at this the wrong way with that comment. He had both his eyes and he had all of his limbs, and that was all that mattered. So Also, he only stole about 20,000, this guy. I'm just saying it's not enough. Nice, eh? Nice little job. Nice. Now, I've got another bit of business news for you. Bit of business news. Freight companies, they're starting to go bankrupt en masse. Their equipment, you see, is all on lease. Oh, and no one's paying their bills. And their equipment is all on lease from China. These Chinese rigs cost about 10 to 12 million, and banks are now repossessing them. They've repossessed tractors that farmers couldn't pay for because they were also on some sort of loan, and they took away all their preferential loan treatment, didn't they? And suddenly nothing got paid. So they got repossessed. They can't even fetch 2.5 million anymore on sale. In Yekaterinburg, there are now rows and rows and rows in a field here of repossessed freight vehicles. Trucks, that's the word, trucks. So Russian transport is also grinding itself to a halt. It's nice to see them eating each other, isn't it? You can't pay, we'll take away your rig, but then you can't deliver food for the local people. So we're all going to starve. It's a very Soviet way of thinking. They like to plan in in 5 minutes time and in 500 years time. But the bit in the middle, the bit where the consequences are, they don't plan for that at all. I have noted that. So there's problems. I love some of the actual comments as well. On the cabins, the lorry logo. This was once one of the most advanced companies in Russia. Oh well. So there's a bit more business news here, and this is a particularly icky business, but it was so Russian, I had to bring it to you. So I apologise if you have a gentle sensibility, but here we go. A St. Petersburg doctor has been arrested for illegally selling human heads. That's right, heads. I don't think he identified them first. He just, he was making money. The city's Alexandrovskaya hospital is suspected of trafficking body parts, because apparently you're still worth something even when you're dead. Selling them to organisations that specialise in cosmetology, surgery and dentistry. So, MSK1RU reports that the heads packed in plastic bags were found during a search by investigators at the beautifully named Cadaver Centre in Moscow. So, Moscow. The company provides medical training and equipping of educational medical centres with cadaver materials. However, none of this stuff was donated for that purpose. He's just basically, there's loads of extra bodies. No one's going to know. Only somebody has found out. Now, this particular cadaver centre apparently has reviews online. I mean, I'm not being funny, but who gives reviews to this sort of place online? Yes, fabulous cadaver centre, full of dead. Yeah, as it should be. So anyway, these reviews are apparently mixed. One lady criticises the hygiene of the building, saying the premises have not been cleaned before or during events. They purchase biomaterials from other contractors. They don't have their own materials, and the storage conditions are appalling. This sounds like a recent thing that happened in America. Some guy got found with just body parts all over his property, and it turned out that this was supposed to be, like a centre for providing medical, cadavers, and he was just, he'd run out of refrigeration units, so he was just storing them everywhere and anywhere, and there was like bits in buckets and things like that. It was, bleh. And it looks as though he learned his trade in Moscow, perhaps. Anyway, then there is another review. This is an excellent cadaver centre. My colleagues and I attended private dissections in September 2023. There was excellent biomaterial provided, excellent equipment and instructions and instruments. They taught us well. They fed us a home-cooked lunch. Anyway, that's concerning. Investigators reportedly believe that the centre's founder has bribed the local hospital to provide him with any unclaimed bodies from the hospital morgue for payment, so he could harvest their internal organs, their bones and tissues. Subsequently, according to an Interior Ministry spokesperson, the biomaterials were transferred further to various commercial organisations and used by them as experimental samples in the fields of cosmetology, surgery and dentistry. I could understand the last two, but anyway, they were also reportedly used to train thanatologists, specialists who prepare corpses for open casket burials. So, you know, that you could what's it called? Formaldehyde, when you do that to people. Embalming. That's the one.
Intern.
Well, embalming was what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah. They also use them for, makeup and restoration of defects. So, you know, if you're preparing a body for an open casket, a lot of the time, one of the things that you do is you put makeup on them to make them look a bit more like they used to look. So, you know, they've been practicing. That's nice. The Interior Ministry says that most often these were actually the bodies of citizens who had led antisocial lifestyles and had no relatives to claim them. So they were just piling up. So, you know, why not? Why not sell them to some dude down the road? If relatives did not appear, other unclaimed bodies, however, were reportedly given to them in the place of any that they should have been selling to them. So people went to the hospital to reclaim their loved one and found that their body had gone because they weren't fast enough. Andrei Kyiv, head of the pathology department at the local hospital, said, and Stanislav Maslov, a member of the Anna Bios LLC, which manages the cadaver centre, they've both been arrested in St. Petersburg. They ran to St. Petersburg and got arrested when they arrived there. Kyiv has now been charged with the abuse of his office and bribery, while Maslov is charged with bribery and incitement to abuse offices. So he was the guy who talked the other guy into it. Payments of 500,000 rubles per month, which is $6,339 at current rates, were reportedly made for the transfer of all these bodies. The chief physician of the hospital, Yuri Linets, has also been fired. He worked there for 16 years, and he's been fired as a result of the scandal, but he's not been arrested, and it's not clear what role he played in it, or whether or not he was the whistleblower. So, you know, you speak up, you get fired. It's almost like the invasion of the body snatchers, isn't it? Apparently, in the 19th century, Russians used to do this, just steal bodies and sell them to the medical business. There's a good joke. Russia is a great place to get ahead. Yes, indeed. I apologise. So it's not just that that's being done on an industrial scale, though. There is one enterprising lady, who decided that she was going to get rid of her ex-boyfriend because, well, he was abusive. And I understand, but she beat him to death with a rolling pin, dismembered his body, and then got a new boyfriend and just a local passerby to help her dump his remains in the woods. I mean, you know, as if you'd just ask a passerby, "Oh, this is quite heavy. Would you mind carrying this for me?" cheeky. Here, mate, have you got a minute? Just hold this, you know? And this just sums up Russian society altogether, isn't it? That you can ask a passerby to carry some body parts into the woods for you, and they will. I mean, she probably offered him some money or some alcohol or something, but wow. And also, her new boyfriend now knows not to beat her up because he'll be in body parts in the woods. Just to note, all of this was caught on camera because, you know, they have cameras everywhere, like Big Brother. Wow. I don't know, but I'd just say that I'm not sure I'd want to be her friend. Definitely not her boyfriend. Dear
You would
me.
you would sleep with one eye open, wouldn't you? You wouldn't actually go to sleep. Case a rolling pin appeared through the door, of course. You know, not good.
Well, I'm only going to say that her boyfriend needs to be very careful if he ever comes into any money or anything like that, because, you know, she's done it once. So, yeah, just a word to the wise. Don't piss off Russian women, I guess. Now, talking of people coming to a sticky end, Budanov was asked about creating a structure like Mossad to punish Russian war criminals. Now, I love the fact that he gave this interview yesterday and everything was like 2 or 3 word answers, apart from like some political stuff. And he just said, it already exists. And he's got a little half a wry smile on his face on this photograph. He is just saying it out loud, isn't he? Anyone who thinks they're safe. Anyone who thinks they're safe. No, you're not. If you created crimes, if you did war crimes, if you instructed people to carry out war crimes, if you looked the other way while war crimes were going on, you're just as guilty. And it will catch up with you. I like that. Now, talking of crime, you like it. Putin's war has created a corruption economy, black market. Russian soldiers are literally paying to stay alive. Remember, you don't get sent to the front if you've got money to pay to stay away from the front. Bless them. This guy who was taking money off the poor soul who couldn't, you know, figure it out, he's not the only person that should be receiving punishment for, you know, corruption. But here we are. He was just a handy target. So, according to investigations by both Medusa and Vostocka, there are going rates for this sort of thing. It's now so common that they're just, you know, you've got a price list. To avoid being sent to the front line to die can be anything between 600 to 12,000 euros, depending on what part of the front line you're on. To actually get a leave or a vacation, between 600 to 6,000 euros. To obtain a certificate to prove that you were wounded, between 600 and 72,000 euros. Wow. Depending on what you want, I suppose. You know, if you just want a couple of days off, I suppose it's a lot cheaper. But if you want to be removed from the front and taken to a hospital somewhere in the rear, that's going to be really expensive. To contribute to common purchases. I mean, everybody has to do this, basically. So that's around 10 to 600 euros per day, apparently. To avoid punishment for using your mobile phone is a one-off payment every time of between 10 to 120 euros. To cancel a contract is virtually impossible. Refusing to pay leads to harassment or being assigned to the next suicide mission. Even the families of dead soldiers also have to pay to find out about their dead soldiers, to confirm that they're dead. Otherwise, they won't be able to claim compensation for themselves. And all the time, they're having to pay extra for fuel. And in the meantime, Putin thinks he's winning. He had summoned Lukashenko, didn't he? Come see me. And this was on the 7th day following what Zelensky said to him. 7 days ago. He had a meeting in Valdai, and it went on for hours. It was not filmed. No information was publicized about it. I think they had quite a hard conversation where Lukashenko did a lot of sweating. There will be no final statements either. Maximum secrecy. Eek. Now, even though Lukashenko was given a car to a special, one of Putin's special cars to be taken from the airport to his residence in, I don't think that was a comfortable journey. I think that was to ensure that he got there without anybody getting in the way. Putin is going to try all means to drag him into this war, or at least to be able to stage provocations against Ukraine from his country, and perhaps even NATO countries. But of course, he needs Lukashenko because remember those sanctions that were lifted on Belarus, and the fact that Luka is providing an awful lot of their fuel supplies and refining capacity, considering his refineries are not currently on fire. I wonder if they've been having a hard conversation in both directions, because Luka, out of everything that he is a survivor, isn't he? Anyway, I imagine Lukashenko looks at the burning oil fields, blazing refineries in Moscow, and isn't very enthusiastic about joining in the war properly. He's afraid, and not without reason. Magyar has already told him that there are 500 targets within Belarus that he's quite happy to hit, just given the word. And Lukashenko is keenly aware that there is a huge technical gap between his army and the Ukrainian army at this point. They talked in April 2025 about building their own Starlink, but it was more like a suitcase-sized thingamy-bob that didn't work. So there's that as well. Technically, Lukashenko doesn't want to do anything at all other than just, quietly get along with everybody and not be drawn into anything too much. His own problems at home are still there. His people hate him. He did put down an uprising with the help of Russia. But does he think that Russia's going to come to his help now? Only to take over afterwards. And he doesn't want that. Russia is weak as well. They're showing weakness in all sorts of places. And Luka knows that he does have some leverage now. Perhaps he can change the view of his people to he is a hero keeping them out of the Russian war. That would certainly extend his stay a little longer instead of his own army putting putting him out of business, shall we say. I wonder how fun that conversation was for either of them. And that's probably why there was nobody there to witness it. Because Putin knows that Luka does have some leverage, and it would be very embarrassing for that conversation to be let out. Just these things that I think in my head. Now, I do have something here which is fun, which is the Russian war bloggers still believe that the CTSO is going to come to their help. Now, remember how the CTSO is like Team U NATO? That it's, a pretend sort of NATO thing with all the bad guys. Now, what is NATO? It's a defensive alliance. They don't come running to, help attack somebody. Just like none of them have lifted a finger towards the Middle East only to defend themselves and their own bases. And that is how it will be. If somebody attacks you in your country, then, NATO would indeed consider coming to your assistance. But considering how we were burned with, weapons of mass destruction and all that bullshit. I think they're very reticent to go and help anybody at this point. However, defensive alliance. And of course, the CTSO was set up in the same vein as a defensive alliance. And the Russians just don't get it. They think that these people are just a pool of people that we can just call to help attack somewhere. Why have they not come to our aid? The war bloggers are very confused about it. What good is the CTSO if it can't help Russia conquer their neighbours? The CTSO was established in 2002 as a military alliance of 6 post-Soviet states. Armenia, who are currently in the process of withdrawing, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, and Tajikistan. And its charter requires all participants to abstain from the use of threat or force towards one another. How's that going, Armenia? Russia threatening you, by any chance? Yes, they are. Despite this, Russian war bloggers do not understand why none of these states are providing large amounts of military assistance against Ukraine. One of them, Direct Action Z, laments. Rumour has it that we and Belarus have requested assistance from the CTSO in case those lads in Ukraine decide to make a move on us. I'm just saying that those lads in Ukraine wouldn't have made any moves had you left them the fuck alone. But here we are. There are 3 countries left that we could turn to. Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. Armenia is now out of the picture, partly because of our passive stance on the Karabakh and Batka. Lukashenko even went as far as to congratulate Aliyev on his new victory, which hasn't sat well with the CTSO. That's one of the main reasons people in Armenia voted for Soros, because, of course, it's all backed up by George Soros, apparently. Kazakhstan is in a very awkward position. We helped Tokayev hold on to power in January 2022, but they are reluctant to repay the debt. Kyrgyzstan is also trying to back out. Reports suggest that officials from the Kyrgyz Foreign Ministry intend to wait for a UN condemnation of any Ukrainian aggressions before they provide any assistance to us. This is a ridiculous excuse. Do you think the UN are going to start condemning Ukraine for their aggression that they didn't start?
Can't see it, Mockers. Really can't.
Exactly. So that's not happening, eh? Good excuse, though. Meanwhile, a very cordial meeting between the foreign ministers of Ukraine and Tajikistan took place the other day. In short, they are not exactly the best allies. They love receiving handouts from our Russia, but when trouble strikes, they turn their backs on us. Mate, you started a war. You started a war. Why would they come to your aid? Of course, there's no point in acting rashly. You have to make do with what you've got. You won't intimidate your CTSO partners with ultimatums here, and each one requires an individual approach given specific circumstances. But I'd have a word with Ramon. He's the president of Tajikistan. Presumably, every region of Russia is chipping in to ensure his cult of personality flourishes in Tajikistan at home. Yet here he is, forging ties with Ukraine. What a joke! And let us not forget that Russia has 3 allies. The army, how's that going? The navy, the one that Ukraine's partially dismantled without actually having a major naval asset of their own. Okay. And North Korea. That don't sound good, does it? It wouldn't be a bad idea to admit the Koreans to the CTSO. They are decent people. Brainwashed slaves? Apparently that's decent. Recent Ukrainian threats to take military action against our signal towers in Belarus have raised the question of whether other CTSO states might be willing to step up and help defend Belarus. But the answer appears to be no. Nezhgar reports, Several military experts believe that Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, that one, will not send military contingents to defend Belarus, and that even raising the issue could collapse the CTSO altogether. Our forecast is that Belarus will not initiate the issue of military assistance. Children of Arabat, this is another blogger, also complains. Russia now only has one ally left, North Korea. Is it discounted China completely there? Because I'm just saying that China are, no, they're not really their friends, are they? They're just sucking the lifeblood out of them like a vampire and watching them get weaker and just biding their time. Okay. I can see why he didn't. North Korea. There is no effective military alliance. Lukashenko has once again confirmed this to us. The Moscow region governor, Vorybov, came to Belarus to discuss investments, but fell into a trap in which Lukashenko publicly reprimanded the ambassador for trying to draw Belarus into the war. Oh, so he turned up to pressure him and offer bribes, and Lukashenko told him to get knotted. That's what happened there. The conclusion is simple. The topic of war between Russia and Ukraine is extremely toxic for everyone. Most countries profit from it, while only the Russians and the Ukrainians suffer losses. There will be no second front, nor will there be military victories for either side in this conflict now. You sure about that? Anyway. Specifically, Lukashenko said in his usual combative style, don't push us to think that Boris, oh my God, right, he's the Russian ambassador to Belarus, and his middle name is Vyacheslavovic, or something like that, is orchestrating a process to draw us into the war. The Russian president and I have discussed this issue 1,000 times. How can we fight against the Ukrainians here on this side if the territorial troops are mainly on that side? In other words, he's saying, there's no Russians here willing to fight, and there's no Belarusians here willing to fight either. Are we going to shoot machine operators, milkmaids, blue-collar workers, people who don't want to fight Belarus either? And the Belarusians, we do not want to fight the Ukrainians. Given this attitude, what kind of ally is Belarus to us, and what is the point of the CTSO? Moscow increasingly asks, why do we need Belarus as an ally if during the war it is a goat's milk? I'm assuming that means that it's a poor substitute for milk. What are Belarus and the CTSO if they are so openly unwilling to fulfill an obligation of defending us? Well, you started a war. They're not going to jump in, are they? Why is there so much talk on Russian television about the weakness of NATO, and yet no conclusions about our combat-ready military alliances? We don't even have any allies. This marginal friendship has led to the collapse of all Russian policies in the post-Soviet space. Money and corruption provide a veneer of loyalty, but this is meaningless. I'd also like to point out that when members of the CTSO asked Russia for help, do you know what the answer was, Firefella?
Yeah, we're busy doing the air or something, wasn't it?
Exactly. So, if you don't go and help your friends when they genuinely need you, when you promised you would, do you expect that they're going to come and help you when you genuinely put your foot in a massive trap and now can't get out? Probably not. Look at the time. Look at the time. I've still got so much to talk about, but we'll have to save it for another day. There are some delightful tales of woe which I haven't got to, but I did have to get to the one about missing heads, so that's fun.
Yeah, thanks.
I love his it, folks. Yeah. I thought you'd enjoy that. Me and Prince always find these stories and enjoy them greatly. So you just have to put up with it with the rest of them. Sorry. Yeah, I love his it, folks, but I need to get out of here because I've got work tonight. Yay! So I'll catch you on the morrow when I've had less sleep than I had last night. Awesome.
Thank you, Mockers. Good show. Apart from the Eds thing, everything else was brilliant. Prince, you're off the naughty step now. You've been there long enough.
The heads thing might have been the best thing of the night. Well, except for the flamingos, the heads thing.
No,
It really is very similar. It sounds like to the case in Philadelphia, where the guy
yeah,
was robbing the graves and selling the parts to all kinds of places.
yeah.
So yeah, that was yeah. Anyway,
Just shows what a diverse audience we got, because you think it's brilliant, I think it's terrible. But there you go. So anyway, people, don't forget, give to the fundraisers, give as much as you can, people. You know, down the arms of chairs and all that malarkey. Shake your trousers out or skirts. Let the money out and donate as much as you can. Ukraine is on the march to victory, and let's support them in that as much as we can, people. And we'll see you all tomorrow after Mockers has worked and I've played cricket all day. So, Slava Ukraini.
Heroim Slava, don't drink too much at the cricket.
Slava Nazi,
Smurd
Smurf
Filaham.
for the ham.
Mitverham. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you all tomorrow. The next segment, actually, if I'm looking at the calendar correctly, is going to be Good Morning Kyiv with Will and Smokey at the normal time that starts, which I think is like 6 a.m. Kyiv. No, sorry, I just had it. It doesn't sound right. 8 a.m. Kyiv. That sounds better. It's an absurdistan that starts at 6 a.m. Kyiv. I apologize. 8 a.m. Kyiv, 1 a.m. Eastern is when that stuff starts. So we will see you guys then, and Mockers will be more tired than she is today. So, Mockers, I hope you make the ice packs. I advise you to do that. They will help. And with that, I think I will just plain and simply say scroll Popotamus.
Pobachimus.
Bye-bye,